Good evening. I'm Mayor Lawrence Rael, and I'm calling the meeting of Tuesday. Oops, let me turn this on first. Sorry about that. Good evening. I'm Mayor Lawrence Rael, and I'm calling the Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 meeting to order. The time is approximately 6 o'clock in the evening. This meeting is streamlined on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance is listed on the website and on page 4 of the meeting packet. I'll defer now to our clerk to read further instructions.
Thank you, Mayor. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting either by Zoom meeting link or viewing via live stream. The meeting is being recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website.
Thank you very much. Danielle, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Benavides?
Here.
Trustee Kiefer?
Here.
Trustee Ranovich?
Here.
Trustee Reinau?
Here.
Very good. We all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is approval of the agenda. Trustees, I would like to remove item A under business for consideration at this time. There is, item A is an agreement with Bernalillo County to work on an animal welfare program, if you will, animal services. And there is some changes that we need to make to the agreement. And so we would like to remove it from the agenda at this moment. In order to do that, we need a motion to amend the agenda.
Sure. Motion to amend the agenda, removing item A, 8A. And I'll second that.
Second, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, discussions for the governing body. Any other questions associated with the agenda? If not, we'll move to approve the agenda.
Go ahead. Motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, we'll now go to general public comment. Only those participants who signed up prior to the meeting can speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda under public comment, and we'll be given 3 minutes. To be fair to others waiting to speak, a timekeeper will make an announcement when the allotted time is up. Therefore, it is important to keep your comments short and plan on making your point as quickly as possible. No action can occur on these items. If you have questions, please feel free to contact staff during business hours. Danielle, please proceed by calling up the individuals that have signed up for general public comment.
Thank you. Our first individual is Mr. Sam Adamo. If you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Sam Adamo, 601 Tascosa Lane Northwest, and I'd like to thank the mayor, the trustees, as well as Los Ranchos staff. This brings back memories of school board meetings, not all of them fun-filled, for sure. Since we live adjacent to 605, I know many of you may have heard about the ongoing problem, and we're not talking about a couple months, we're talking about years. We know that the village of Los Ranchos has invested substantial sums of money. It's just, as their immediate neighbors, it's very, very frustrating. It's like we're living next to a junkyard. They have tons and tons of feral cats, and they don't have utilities, and oftentimes in the winter, they're sleeping in the cars, and they get up in the evening and nature calls, and that residue is there. And I think more than anything, we know that certain people need help, but as residents of that neighborhood, we would appreciate anything that you can do to help us resolve this problem. It's ongoing, and it's just it just seems that given public health codes, as far as I know, junkyards aren't allowed in residential zoning, that there has to be something that the village, in cooperation or coordination with the county of Bernalillo, might be able to help the residents and as well as the people who live next door to us. I think that when you look at some of these issues, excuse me, with hoarders or whatever, they certainly need help. And we're just here asking, once again, for your help and your assistance. And if there's anything that we could do to aid you in making a decision and trying to resolve this, we'd be more than happy to. And again, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention to this, and we look forward maybe to contacting you at your leisure, and we're happy to give you a tour of the property from our perspective. And again, thank you again for your service and all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Martinez? Ms. Gordine McKenzie? Ms. Nancy Nangeroni? Mr. Henry Schonard? If you would, please approach the podium.
Yes, my name is Henry Schonard, 6603 Elwood Drive, Northwest. I'm in the village. So I'm going to read this. It's sort of a prepared thing. I don't want to miss any details on it. Mayor, trustees, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I come before you wearing two hats that represent my service to the village of Los Ranchos and the children of Los Ranchos Elementary School. First, as a volunteer at Los Ranchos Elementary School, where I have been co-teaching during the extended school day called the Genius Hour. In the Genius Hour, we focus on growing food and good nutrition, helping our children connect science, health, and their daily lives. This summer, my son and I are continuing that work, growing produce at the school that will be used to help feed the children when school resumes in the fall. This work is rooted in a belief that learning happens best when it is tied directly to the lived experience of our children, our families, and our community. Second, as a volunteer, as a member of the Advisory Council of the Department of Senior Affairs of the City of Albuquerque, representing Los Ranchos. I do that as a volunteer. I was appointed to this council by Mayor Don Lopez, and I am hopeful that I will have the opportunity to continue serving under but it will take an upping my position on the council because I'm coming to the end of a term. So Mayor Rael, I'll be hoping I'll be able to do that as my first term concludes. During my time on the council, I advanced a memorial encouraging the development of programs, services, facilities, and other community and municipal projects that are planned, designed, operated, and maintained to best accommodate all ages and abilities. And this was actually a memorial that was passed by the city, and soon after that by the the Board of Trustees. None of you were serving at that time, but that's what happened. Both of these strands of my volunteer work with children at the school and my service on the Senior Affairs Council converge toward a vision I would like to begin sharing with you, members of
The speaker's time has expired.
Okay, so in any case, what I'm hoping is that we can ensure that Los Ranchos Elementary School is actively involved in planning its future, creatively collaborating with Albuquerque Public Schools to develop curriculum rooted in our agricultural identity, hiring staff committed to this vision, and making budget decisions that turn vision into reality. Tonight, I'm especially reaching out to Los Ranchos residents who want to join me in this creative collaboration. I invite your partnership as we begin this important conversation.
Thanks, Henry. We will certainly want to read more about it. Thanks for your volunteerism, and we'll get back with you on the appointment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your service. Thanks for
Thank you. Ms. Wendy Cox, if you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Cox. And first, I want to say thank you to each of you. I know it's a hard job to be a trustee for this crazy village, but I really appreciate your hard work. And I just wanted to say thank you. I've been here before. About 605, our neighbors. 605 Tascosa is getting worse. It's now been 7 years since it's getting worse. Now they do not have any utilities. Occasionally they run their generator, but there's no water, no electricity. There's just boxes, and there's a dead car in the street, and people coming and going. Feral cats, the smell of urine, oftentimes in the morning and evening, and I know my neighbor on Schulte can confirm that. It's not getting any better. And what my question to you is tonight, why can't the board or Los Ranchos talk to Bernalillo County Board of Health or the Bernalillo County Fire Department and say they need to be reported, they needed to be condemned? It's the fire danger. It really scares me. It's like, maybe tonight it's not going to be so bad because of the rain, but it's very, it's a tough neighborhood to live in. We're all of us on the street. I brought 8 people last time. We're all really very, very frustrated, and no explanation whatsoever from the village as to why you can't do something. So I appreciate your help. I appreciate your interest. I can take phone calls 24/7. Thank you very much.
Ms. Cox, before you depart, can you give us your address, please?
Oh, I'm at 601 Tascosa, abuts 605.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Ryan Trujillo. If you would, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Ryan Trujillo, 1413 33rd Circle Southeast, Rio Rancho. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Los Ranchos Saturday Arts and Crafts Market. On behalf of them, we really appreciate the village for allowing us the privilege of being able to show up and try to sell some wares every Saturday for all these years. I started doing the market back in 2005, did it for about 3 or 4 years, and it was really phenomenal. There was a lot of spectators, a lot of vendors, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of really high-end, not really so much high-end, but quality arts and crafts, and a waiting list of people that wanted to get into the market. Every Saturday was great. It was very festive. Mayor Larry and his wife would walk around most weekends, chit-chatting with people and enjoying it. You could tell it was a lot of really close locals. It was a very festive occasion. I had to do some other things when I came back about 4 years ago, and it was really different. It's really very quiet, and it's been getting worse. We're actually in not really trouble, but we could be doing better. And what I'm thinking is we really need to do an advertising blitz, a really hardcore one, and I've got some good ideas for that. I've checked into a lot of things, and it's not cheap, but it would be really effective stuff. And so I saw a news report on the village about 2 weeks ago talking about how the village had millions of dollars that they wanted to invest in improving the community, the village itself. And this would be a perfect opportunity to help us out if you were willing. We're looking for advertising funds to do this advertising, and we wouldn't need to do it forever. We just need to get a jump start. part of the problem is now is that we have a shortage of vendors, and the ones that sign up new, they don't last very long generally because it's hard work and they don't make much money because it's so quiet. So they quit, they don't come back, they go to other markets. And the same thing applies to the foot traffic. They show up and it's just an okay show, and there's not really a great incentive to come back. So it's a really hard reputation to rekindle. But I know we can do it. It was good back then. We've got some really good ideas to accomplish this. And hopefully you guys will consider helping us out a little bit. If you have any questions, you can contact myself or Jane Gordon. She runs the market. And with that, I really appreciate you guys' time, and you all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Gordine McKenzie, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail, Northwest. I had just a couple things that I wanted to share. The first is to invite you all to one of our Los Ranchos Historical Society's talk this Saturday at 1 p.m. We're having David Montoya do a talk. It's called Stories and History of the Land and the Acequias in Los Ranchos. And just a little bit of a bio, most of you know him. David Montoya is a longtime resident of Los Ranchos. He's a farmer, has been and also a rancher, a community activist, and a business owner who loves agriculture. He was the youngest person interviewed for the most comprehensive history of Los Ranchos in Shining River Precious Land, an oral history of Albuquerque's North Valley. David inherited his grandfather's love and respect for the land, and on Saturday he will share stories about early Los Ranchos history, including floods, agriculture, acequias, and adventures with his grandfather who helped raise him. He recalls as a child visiting nearby pueblos when he was young and remembered his grandfather spoke fluent Tiwa and told him he was proud his family had Indian blood. David recalls, when my grandfather came and saw the land, he fell down on his knees and he was lifting up the dirt. He loved it. The land was so good. He raised so much. He was able to feed his family. So I hope you all will join us. It'll be at 1 p.m. at the Rudolfo Anaya North Valley Library, and it's free. And if I still have a second to speak, speaking of the land, I spoke out at the last planning and zoning meeting about how Guadalupe Chavez is our gateway into the village. It's a historic site that was once dairies that the Chavez family owned. It's also historically alfalfa. And I would just say, if we can, let's change where the open space is gonna be. Don't leave it on Chavez. No animals are gonna come on Chavez. Put it on Guadalupe, where the Sandhill cranes used to come and where people from all
The speaker's
over
time has expired.
came and looked at the cranes. And it would be nice if we might ask Mr. Long if he would consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nancy Nangeroni, if you would. You're going to pass? Okay, thank you. Mayor and trustees, that concludes public comment.
All right, thank you very much. Let me just say to the residents that came to speak about the two properties that are a challenge, we are very well aware of the situation you all are encountering, Mr. Avila and Mr. Fred Rodasevich, our public safety coordinator, are working with our attorneys to do something about the proper channels, if you will, legal channels to address that issue. We appreciate your patience, and I know it's not easy, and I know you're frustrated, but please get with us here in the next week, and let's just see if we can't give you a little more updated information on that issue in particular. Thank you for being here tonight. All right, we're going to move on now to approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of May 20th, 2025 at our regular meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and second. Any corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We're now going to presentations. I see that Mr. Casito is sitting here in the back with Albuquerque Public Schools. And I don't know who is going to be up here making a presentation, Mr. Casito, but thanks for being here to talk to us a little bit about the projects you're doing in the village. And by the way, your hair is nicely combed these days.
Like having the wind go through my scalp.
It's good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. My name is Kizito Wijenje. I'm the Executive Director of Albuquerque Public Schools Capital Master Plan. I do not have a proper presentation, but I was asked by the mayor to come and answer some questions and give an update on some of the things that we're doing in schools that are adjacent or within the village of Los Ranchos, that is Taylor Middle School, Taft Middle School, which will become Coronado K through 8. And I'm open to questions.
So let's start. I know that we had some questions that came to my office, but let me start with Trustee Ratner, because he has been coordinating this. So George, if you want to maybe ask some of the questions.
Mayor, I believe this letter was sent
Sure.
from someone in my neighborhood to Danielle and John, I believe, about 2-3 weeks ago. And I noticed it's not in the packet. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if I've been holding it since June 9th. So he didn't come tonight because I didn't know that Casito was going to be here. And they called me and I told them I don't think APS is going to be here. So there are a lot of people that are very upset about, especially Taylor and some Trump. Sorry. that was a slip. Taft, sorry. Danielle, would you like to
So
read
that
this, or
was
should
not
I?
provided to me. I think it was given or brought in. I sent it to you via email and made hard copies, and there was never a request that I was aware of to put this in a packet. Secondly, we did have the APS as a presentation. However, I had not received an actual presentation if we were going to do something indeed. But Mr. Martinez did email me and said he wanted to speak tonight. However, he didn't respond when I called his name.
Well, let's go ahead. I'm sorry, just to get us back on track. I know you had some concerns, because you had sent me some concerns, Trustee. So do you want to start, or I can start, and then we can dovetail from those?
I'm happy to start.
Go for it.
So can I read this?
Sure.
So this is from a neighbor directly across the street from the school. And he is close to me, so I don't think I have to recuse myself, but I have similar concerns. Dear Mayor Real, trustees, Renaud, Benavidez, Kiefer, and Radnovich, I wanted to express my concern about the construction project at Taylor Middle School at the 6/17/25 Special Planning and Zoning meeting. Unfortunately, my wife, Wendy, and I are unable to attend the meeting. Of course, that was last week and we changed the meeting date. So I am writing this letter instead. We live directly across the street from Taylor at 8205 Guadalupe Trail Northwest. We were unaware of any potential projects at the school until I drove home on 6/2/25 and saw the heavy equipment behind a temporary fence on the west side of the Taylor property. It was a shock to find out after some investigation that a two-phase $40 million project was planned that would provide education space not only for current Taylor students, but also for the former Taft students. A doubling of the school's enrollment means a doubling of the traffic along two-lane Guadalupe Trail. At its current enrollment, there have been occasions when I have had a difficult time getting into Alondra Lane as parents wait in their vehicles trying to get into Taylor, and in doing so, clog the right-of-way in both directions for residents in the neighborhood. I have also been unable to collect my mail as parents park in front of my mailbox, and I fear that doubling the traffic will make residing on Guadalupe Trail considerably less bucolic. As a neighbor so immediately affected by the decisions APS makes, I feel it is only correct that Taylor and APS be overly communicative with my wife and I, as well as with all of the residents of Guadalupe Trail from El Pueblo to Ranchitos. More importantly, I hope that Taylor and APS will be open and responsive to concerns raised by members of the neighborhood. I am eager to review both a site plan for the project and a traffic impact study to understand how Taylor and APS intend to make this project work for the students, faculty, and the neighbors that live nearby. And Casito, I got many phone calls from neighbors along Guadalupe and I didn't count them, and on my street, Alondra Lane. And they're all worried about traffic. Some are worried about the fact that it's going to be a two-story building in what was before now a one-story building. I didn't even see the plans for that, so I'm not aware of it. They would all like to see the plans, and I believe they'll be coming to the next Board of Education meeting to complain to them as well, because they feel blindsided by the project. And I can understand it. We didn't hear from you till last month, and the traffic is a concern. The two-story size of the reconstruction is a concern, and then the synthetic turf in front of the school instead of putting real grass out there is a concern for people that live in that part of the village, if not other parts. So that's echoed by many people in my neighborhood anyway.
Go ahead, Mr. Castillo.
So thank you very much for that. We've been working with the village on this issue. In fact, what we've created is a shared drop. I think I sent you a link to it.
Yes, and I couldn't get into that drawing. I asked you today if you could send me another link.
Okay, so we have a common database of which all the projects that are in schools within the area of Los Ranchos have a file, and in real time we drop in what exactly is going on, whether portables are being moved out, whether portables are being moved in. Actually, no portables are being moved in. We're moving out all portables. And we did a traffic impact study, which came up with some solutions which we are implementing to make sure that traffic is brought onto our property and does not back into the adjacent streets. That is ongoing. And on the issue of, and we have this on a link, and I will send it to you again. There's also plans for the school. So Taylor Middle School is 61 years old. The current update and construction is something that would have to be done anyway. It just so happens because we are repurposing the purpose of Taft. Now, Taft, designed for 800 kids, at one time had 700. Taylor is designed for 800 kids. 20 years ago, it had 1,000 kids before we built James Monroe on the west side. And so right now, Taylor has almost 300, and Taft has almost 300. And so combining both schools will bring Taylor to the population lower than it used to be. We are making sure we design the school for about 650, and Taft will be a K through 8 magnet school, and it's being designed for about 550. Now, right now, Taylor, it's the first phase of the rebuilding of that school. It's doing all the ancillary spaces, the administration, the music and art part. That's a 2-story building. The reason we're going to a 2-story building is that the old 61-year-old building is being used as swing space. We don't want to bring in 30 portables and demolish the school and then build the new school and move them and remove the portables, not only for the expense, but for the disruption. So what we're doing is that they're staying in their building. We're using a new footprint to build the 2-story administrative building, and the second phase is going to be a 2-story classroom building. And what will happen is that now the fields will move to the front. I can talk to why we go to AstroTurf. We live in a high desert. Turf athletic fields cost $11,000 a month to maintain. That is aerate, water, and returf. And so we have to make a decision as to where we will put our resources in terms of when we do a field. And with the turf fields, we do not look at fields as merely athletics facilities, but they are also outdoor classrooms. And if we don't have the resources to maintain grass 12 months a year, it's inequitable, because by October, you have dirt that is painted over, and you have all kinds of problems. You have all kinds of drainage problems. And so that's, in a nutshell, what's happening at Taylor. At Taft, we are just doing the normal refurbishing of the school so that this new population will move in. And both of this includes traffic circulation, ingress and egress, and that's on the Dropbox. And at some, I know the staff and some of your officials do have a link to that. And if at a later, we're willing to come to another meeting and actually show exactly what that is. And I'll make sure you have access to that. On the issue of, we've also gotten letters and inquiries about traffic on El Pueblo and I think Guadalupe, because the cement trucks and the construction trucks happen to go through at certain times and make it crowded. So we're looking at the possibility. We got a letter like 2 days ago. We're looking at the possibility where we can coordinate with a contractor to make sure what time they can do this in a way they can efficiently finish their project, but at the same time not disrupt the community. If you have those letters from the community and those inquiries, I will create a file of which you can drop them into that shared box, and so we can try and address some of those issues directly. Issues And we understand this because we're rebuilding Corrales School. Corrales Elementary is now a Corrales K-8. We're spending about $42 million to rebuild that historical school, and it's going to go into a two-story building. Of course, in Corrales, just like Los Ranchos, there's concerns about sight lines, there's concerns about environment, there's concerns about what kind of trees we're going to put in there. So what we've done over there, adjacent neighbors, we have worked with them consistently to make sure within the purview of what we can do with our budget, we keep certain things at a certain place. And we worked with the village of not Los Ranchos, with the village of Corrales to make sure certain things such as, one of the things that makes commercial buildings too high is that you put the penthouses and things like the air conditioners and the mechanical systems on the roof. We designed the building such that it was no higher than their existing community center. So there's certain things we can do as we design, especially the second building, which will be a bigger building, will be a two-story classroom block. We can tweak some things in the design. This first building is a $15 million building. It's mostly administration. And so things such as sight lines, things such as disruption during construction, we can talk about. And then I'm willing to come back and talk about what we're doing to the traffic, which will be better than what is going on now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have, Mayor, if I could. Is the two-story part of the building only going to be the classroom part behind, or are both parts of the building going to be two-story?
Both
and then both
of
parts
them will be. Yeah.
And will the footprint of the building be smaller?
Smaller, yes. And not only in terms of square footage, but also it's a lot more efficient. Our utility bill is $50,000 a day. And so what we do, and then there'll be things such as solar panels on the top to mitigate, because the school will go from swamp coolers to refrigerated air. And we're not trying to eliminate the utility bills, but we're trying to mitigate them. So we shall have probably a solar array of up to 200 panels, and kind of recycling the water. That's why you see the artificial turf, having some cisterns and things like that, because it's just a matter of conserving what we have. Even though we have water rights over there, the water table all over the North Valley is falling, and we don't think we should just pump it out and water
I can speak directly to what you said about synthetic turf versus natural turf. We're doing a study for the county of Los Alamos of all of their sports fields. My company is. And there are pros and cons to synthetic turf and natural turf. Yes, synthetic turf uses less water, not no water, as you probably know, but there are environmental issues associated with it, even now with the newer varieties of synthetic turf. And natural turf does use more water, but it cools the environment. Synthetic turf heats the environment. So there are pros and cons to each. And I think, at least I understand the pros and cons very well at this point because of the study we're doing. But I realize that, but I'd still like to talk to you about it, if we could.
And you're right. So things such as tree cover, shade cover, what you put in with the synthetic turf, and the kind of synthetic turf, if you put in the cheap stuff, not only does it heat stuff, you have to water it during summer because it gets very hot. And it's also maybe cheaper to put, but what we make sure is that we have a substrate of about 4 feet, which makes sure that the water goes in. So we can discuss that later.
Yeah, that would
and
be
we
great.
and we're willing to work with the village and with the neighbors. And so if we'll create a Dropbox about immediate neighborhood concerns, and in fact, what I'm going to do, I'll get a GIS drop of adjacent neighbors who may be attended, and we may create a meeting just for them, because we did this at Corrales, where we worked with the neighbors or people who have property, and we talked to them about what we're doing, talk to them about their concerns, down to the fencing types, because at the end of the day, this is a public institution paid by the taxpayer, and these are our neighbors. And if the neighbors are not happy with this public institution, they're not going to look after it. They're our first eyes and ears.
Thank you for offering that, Casito.
No problem.
And I'm sure the neighbors of Taylor would be happy to do that. I'm guessing Taft may be very similar. I know that some people have already told us have some issues with Taft as well. So
Yes.
That
And
would
we're
be
doing this
excellent.
at
Thank you.
substantial cost, especially the traffic, and we understand what that means. Now, one of the things is that the kids from Taft will all be eligible for busing, even though there's more kids, it's the same buses because it's the same routes, but you know how parents are. There'll still be parents who come and queue up. And we've seen this in the rest of the city. We've seen this at Jefferson, we've seen this at Desert Ridge. If you don't create a solution for how parents queue, even though the kids are eligible for busing,
Yes.
they'll queue onto the city streets, and it's ugly, it's unsafe. You have to start ticketing people. People get into altercations. So we have to create a solution where we use our own land and our own resources to make sure that we take care of that problem. And we'll work with you on that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Casito. I think I'll turn it over to Trustee Kiefer.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. I just have a couple questions, because when you first started responding to Trustee Radnovich's questions, you said that you're working with the village. So who specifically are you working with?
We had a meeting with almost the whole village staff a few months ago, and that's where we created the common Dropbox, electronic Dropbox, basically that has in real time all the issues, such as all the site plans, all the traffic plans.
Is there a specific point of contact that's kind of been spearheading that?
I think it was.
Communication
I think it was
between APS and the
your. I'm spearheading it from APS. I think the village manager. There's a whole bunch of village staff. I don't have their names that also have access to that, so that at any given time they know what we're doing. If they have a concern, we know it in real time, and if there's any developments, we let them know, because it was a concern at Taft when we were moving out portables, and we had these flatbeds moving out at all hours of day and night. And so that was one of the things that precipitated that. We had to make sure that if we're going to have any movement of any heavy movement, we coordinate with the village and give them notice and work with them as to when would be the best time to do this. And that's what I'm offering for the construction of Taylor, because Taylor...
And for Taft?
Oh, yes. And because Taft, it's just refurbishment going on right now. The only heavy construction is that we're going to move all those portables out, because we don't need them anymore.
And one of the reasons I'm asking is because last time when we had a lot of village attendees here, and I know APS board president was here, and it was right before the decision on making Taft, or changing Taft and how that was going to work. APS did a presentation before us, and Mayor, this was prior to you, and there was mention that that APS had been working with Mayor Craig, but I started doing the math, and Mayor Craig came into office in January, and by March, unfortunately, he was disabled and was no longer participating in any of these meetings, and by May, he had passed away. And so I'm a little concerned on how these communications are really happening and what the timeframes are, because the math isn't mathing for me. And one of the complaints we keep hearing from our constituents over and over and over is we're not getting communication. And so I don't have a dog in the fight, except the fact that the villagers want to know what's going on. The villagers want input into what's going on. And the biggest complaint is nobody's being heard. And anytime we kind of bring this up, and I appreciate you being here, but we're working with the village. Well, who? Well, I don't know. Well, we talked to Mayor Craig. When? Because he was only here for 3 short months as an elected official before he had his medical condition, and then subsequently passed away very quickly thereafter. So it just isn't working for me. And the other thing that I want to talk about is we keep hearing traffic studies are being done, and we're moving the schools to the size they were, 15, 20 years ago with 700, 800 students,
Smaller.
that they are smaller, but we're consolidating them to be bigger.
No, they'll be smaller than they ever were.
I get that, but they're bigger than they are now.
Yes.
And so with that comes traffic. And when we look at the traffic, because we keep hearing traffic studies are being done, we also have to remember the village itself, the roads, the neighborhoods, the amount of houses, the agriculture fields, the open spaces are now houses. And perfect example, Chavez and Guadalupe is going to be putting 16, 17 new houses right there. That's the major intersection right next to Taft. Was that considered? I'm sure it wasn't, because those houses aren't there. But that's a 9-acre agricultural field that's going to have houses. And I guarantee there's a lot more houses than there were in those areas of Taylor and Taft than there were 15, 16 years ago. Because I grew up in the valley and I can tell you it's all changed. So these are the frustrations that I'm experiencing and that I'm having. And I just wanted to bring those to your attention.
I think, Mr. Casito, I think one of the interesting issues, again, just because of the nature of the questions that you're hearing, and also the concerns that I'm hearing even from our administrator and staff, is that this Dropbox system and this process seems to have lapsed or I'm not sure on whose end, but to give everybody the benefit of the doubt that we're all trying to work these issues out, I think we really would ask, and when I spoke with your staff some time ago, it was specifically to have a presentation and or a meeting with the community, just so that we can have a real sort of, if you will, come back to a sort of a good decision point so that we can see where things are. I know that these drop boxes can be technical and complicated, but a lot of citizens don't know, quite frankly, how to access those, et cetera. So I would encourage you all, and if you would just help us maybe have a meeting with the community again, just to have an update on where things are, to give people a perspective of the traffic analysis that you all have done, the construction. I've learned a lot just from what you just said here as it relates to the 2 schools. And as Trustee Keeper said, I think the important part for us is that the village continues to grow. Both projects that are going to impact those intersections right by Taft are projects that are going to bring more, obviously, cars and more residents to the village. Taylor, what happens, as you know, is neighbors and communities get used to a certain size of a school for a long period of time, even if the school was designed to have a much larger population base. And then all of a sudden, you go back to the original population base and folks get nervous that, wait a minute, so realizing memories are short, for sure, but also I think it's more of a question of just communication. So if you might indulge us with trying to figure out a time when we might have a meeting, offer you this facility or any facility you want to use, the schools or what have you, to just engage with the neighbors one more time and have a conversation about these issues so that we can all, at least get a sense of where things are. I will say on behalf of the village, however, that the idea to do busing, for example, for Taft was a good decision, and we appreciate that. That certainly is going to be helpful to the traffic volumes that we might otherwise have seen if every parent decided to drop their child off every day. And I get that too. But I do think that you all have tried in some areas, and I appreciate that, but I just think we just need to maybe recalibrate and get back to a place where we can all see where things are moving forward, especially as this construction starts to take hold. But anyway, I'm just, I don't know if Trustee, if you have any other questions?
Defer first to,
No, you guys are covered.
oh, okay. Yeah, I do have just a couple of questions. You know, and again, I mean, the communication issue certainly has been ongoing. One of the issues that I've heard from parents who are currently at Coronado, who have been basically told that their child's going to Taft, is that they didn't have much input to that either. So a decision was made, and I don't know at this point what the census is going to look like at Taft, because we're moving all of the current students at Taft to, to Taylor, and then accepting a group of students that are going to be coming to Taft also from Alvarado. So there's a lot of confusion out there in terms of what kinds of growth these schools are going to have, and certainly concerns among the Taft parents sending their kids to Taylor about whether Taylor is going to be able to accept that many students in the current condition that it is with construction going on. So right now you've had 300 students. You're going to be adding maybe another 300. Is Taylor then going to be able to accommodate those
Absolutely.
additional students?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, and how then is that going to affect the programming that goes on at Taylor? I mean, is it going to be the same kind of offerings that would have occurred if the students stayed at Taft, as an example?
Even more robust, especially in the music and art parts.
But that's what parents don't know.
I don't know where you're getting your information, but I'd rather not go into the instructional and the Board of Education stuff. But if at the presentation, and I like what the mayor said, I'd like to approach this on an issue-by-issue basis. So I would suggest I'll take it back to the leadership and my superintendent and probably have a meeting with a Taylor group. And then we've already actually, for Taft, we've already been planning a major open house that we were going to invite the village trustees and all the village to Taft, which is now Coronado, at its opening, and maybe even before, so that we can walk you through. They can tell you about their program and see what kind of synergy, because we do realize, especially with Taft, that working in synergy with the trustees and with this community is key to them being successful. And so we're going to work out some dates so that you are over at an open house. And we can, and this is not just something we'll do once, it's an ongoing thing. The principal is aware, and we're going to choose a date and throw a few dates at the mayor and see what's appropriate for you. Come late August, mid-August or late August. And then I'd like to start the meetings with Taylor as soon as possible. We'll get with you in the next week to get the neighbors and have a meeting, an initial meeting where we shall tell them exactly in non-technical terms, not just a Dropbox. This is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it, this is how we're doing, and get some feedback of how do you think it's going to affect you and how can we mitigate that and how can we work together.
Well, I might suggest that we also include parents in that as well. So the parents can actually understand what's going to be going on at Taylor and that may affect the community around Taylor. I have seen cars when Taylor was operating in the spring. I've seen cars that have been on Guadalupe and have been on the east-west streets as well, waiting to get into to Taylor. You know, and so obviously getting those cars off the street. I take it then that busing is going to occur at Taylor.
Yes, there's
Okay.
busing that's going to occur. There's an interim plan for the pickup and drop off, and then there's a long-term plan, which will bring all that traffic totally within our property and get it off Guadalupe and all the other streets.
Okay, and then
And we'll explain that. We can explain that in length for a meeting just for them.
and in terms of Taft, I guess the final question. So there's not going to be any more construction right now at Taft, or is there going to be ongoing construction while students are?
For now,
visiting?
Taft, what we're doing with Taft is we are refurbishing. What we do, we call summer, people think summer is time off, but for us who work in operations, we call summer 49 days of hell, because we have 49 days to get 17 million square feet on 1,200 square miles ready for the school year. And we have exactly 49 days. And we do, I mean, when a school institution, as you all know, this is an institution that's, in Taft's case, 120,000 square feet, and they've got 400 kids who are going in every day. It's beat up. So you have to do like refurbishment, like deep cleaning, refurbishment, replace furniture, do all the checks on the fire extinguishers, you know, all the sprinkler systems. And so that's what we are doing in depth right now at Taft. And because Taft, there's a total change in program, there's equipment being moved in, there's equipment being moved out, and we're getting rid of the portables because that's problematic. We're going away from portables as a whole district-wise for various reasons. So, and we can set some dates, and we'll talk to the community and the parents on that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you for being here.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Mr. Castillo, thanks again. Appreciate it. I think you get a sense that that I think it's really important for all of us to have one more conversation. And would you at least do me a favor? This is Mr. Avila. He is our administrator. Would you visit with him before you leave this evening to ensure that he's getting the information that you shared with us through the Dropbox process or the system you all have? Because I know that he and I have had conversations about some of these issues, and we're both sort of a little bit in limbo as it relates to some of that information. So it may be that there's some disconnect there that needs to be reconnected. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Appreciate it
very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll be getting in touch.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Trustees, Chief Pettis is here, and obviously not on our agenda, but I wanted him to come up and say a few words during public comment. So we may revert back to public comment for a second. With the fires that have been happening along the corridor, I thought it was important, at least for the chief, to give us a quick update in terms of what's happening. And so, Chief, thank you so much for coming at the spare of the moment, and we thank you very much. And I will leave the floor for you to give us an update.
Mayors, trustees, good evening. Greg Pettis, Fire Chief and Deputy County Manager for Public Safety for Bernalillo County. As always, pleasure to be back in the village where everything started for me. What I can tell you is we are very well prepared as a fire department for any type of wildland fire, be it in the Bosque, be it in the East Mountains, Pajarito Mesa, you name it, geographically we have it and we're prepared for it. What makes us slightly different here, I think, in the village of Los Ranchos as opposed to Valencia County is the number of eyes and ears that we have on our Bosque basically around the clock. And again, be it professional eyes from law enforcement or fire and rescue, or just individuals who utilize the Bosque. The Bosque is built differently in this section as well of Bernalillo County. with our trails and such that we have in there. We don't have houses that encroach deep into the bosque, as you will see in Valencia County. So there are a multitude of things that are different when you're trying to compare, which you really can't compare the two. The next piece that we look at is the readiness of Bernalillo County's fire and rescue. So we start preparing for wildland season around January. We start going through all of our refresher courses, our S-130s, our S-190s, which are state-required wildland training courses. We start doing our annual pack test, which sometimes you'll see them with their 40-pound packs on their back, walking 3 miles in 45 minutes. Everyone has to recertify and do that every year, so we're getting that knocked out, making sure all of our trucks are ready to go and set. And then we've done our pre-plans as well for each of the respective areas. So in the village of Los Ranchos right now, as we speak, you've got 25 firefighters on the ready with approximately 25 pieces of apparatus on the ready. You probably right now have, if I estimated, you probably have about 15,000 gallons of portable water in trucks that's ready to roll on a moment's notice. That's just in the North Valley. That's not talking about what we have in the South Valley or what we have in the East Mountains that would help to complement that in the event that a fire happened. So in no way am I saying that we are perfect and we're going to be absolutely ready for the exact emergency, but I can tell you that we are well prepared as we can possibly be. We've got an amazing evacuation system and tool out there. I don't know if any of you have utilized Everbridge yet, but I highly encourage you to get out to Bernalillo County's website and download Everbridge. Everbridge is our communication tool, which is utilized by law enforcement and fire and rescue in any kind of emergency, and it doesn't have to be just simply a wildland emergency. Everbridge will let you know that there is something happening on your street, wildland fire, even if you're sitting on the beach in Cabo San Lucas. It's that good. So it's important that you all get out there and take advantage of Everbridge. It is an absolute free app, free program. If you're charged, if someone says they're charging you, get away from it because that's not the program that we're offering. So again, I encourage you to get out and utilize Everbridge. We do work hand in hand with our sheriff's department on evacuations. I know a lot of times people want to know, where do I go? Where do I evacuate? I can't tell you because we don't know what the incident is or what the emergency is. But I can tell you is we have a multitude of different routes and different areas that we can bring people to and shelter them, and not just you, but your animals as well. We've got animal care that's on the ready to help move horses and larger livestock in the need and the event that we need it. So I venture to say that you're pretty well protected and well covered in the village of Los Ranchos. Again, perfect? No, nobody's perfect, but we're pretty darn close to it right now as we sit. So that's where we are, Mayor.
Chief, thank you so much. Just a couple of quick questions. One is, can you tell us, at least from a practical perspective, of what you're observing as it relates to the actual bosque in terms of, I know that this weekend we had several little fires pop up here and there, and my compliments to you and all the other firefighting crews that came from Corrales and Albuquerque, et cetera. You guys did a great job. But just what are we seeing in terms of just this area of the stretch of the river?
So of course we have dry conditions, right? The rain that we got this afternoon was a true blessing. We could use another 3 weeks of that to get us kind of back into a moisture table that we would be somewhat comfortable with. And that's asking quite a bit. We have a very dry area in the bosque here. The one thing that I will tell you is there were some good thinning projects that went through this particular area when we're looking from Montano to Alameda. We need to get back on that again. Some of that has grown back over the course of time. We've had some good monsoon seasons, and it brings those lower fuels up. And really our biggest concern is not the ground fuels. It's when it gets into the canopy of the trees that we start to have trouble. So anytime we see a lot of dry cottonwoods and such in the bosque, that's always an area of concern. What we are, and I was just talking with the sheriff yesterday, what we are looking to do is go through our bosque area from Alameda to Montano, both fire and rescue and law enforcement, just to kind of look at it, evaluate it, see what we have, see our biggest hazard areas, and if we can, work together with the state to potentially close those hazard areas if we continue to see the dry weather, and more importantly, if we have encampments inside of those areas, trying to remove those. So the fires that happened in near Alameda over the weekend was potential arson. The fires down in Valencia County are now being attributed to potential arson. And what I can tell you is there's not a lot we can do when there's someone out there who's actively setting those fires. And a lot of the time they're 2 steps ahead of us in what their plan is to try to destroy or cause mass casualty or whatever it is that they may be looking for. But to your point, Mayor, I think the bosque is in a decent place, but we can do better, and we're committed to trying to do that. And again, as I said, with the sheriff and fire working hand in hand, we'll go through this part of the bosque to see what we see and move what needs to be moved out of there. And then I think together, Bernalillo County, Los Ranchos, and the state need to start really amping up our efforts to do some thinning in the bosque again, because it is long overdue. I think the last time we had the really big fire in there was about 2006. I remember being on the stick of a ladder truck in Dietz Circle for that fire. So it's been some time, and unfortunately, it's overdue. So let's hope that doesn't come.
Thank you, Chief. May I encourage you to maybe ask your public affairs person or your public relations if they might send an article describing this app that you just talked about. Our village residents obviously get this magazine every other month, and we share a lot of information, I think in particularly with the timing, the summer months, et cetera. If they might be able to share some of what you just talked about a little bit in a brief article, if they can get with Mr. Avila, we can get that inserted into the magazine so that folks know how to get access to that information. As you can imagine, all of us will get a question, I'm sure you do too. What do we know what to do, where do we go, et cetera. A little bit of, I think, sort of preemptive information would be really helpful. And so I just want to thank you for, again, at the last minute coming up and giving us an update. Let me open it up to the trustees, see if any of them have any questions.
So I think our public safety officer mentioned this several months ago about sensors that we can put looking at the bosque that has a range of, I don't know, quite a long range for early alerts, right? Is that being done?
So it's something we're exploring. They're pricey, but it is something that we are exploring as a whole together. The Sheriff's Department is exploring tons of technology, and we're kind of piggybacking with him on what they're doing as far as cameras and drones and all of those things. So we're definitely looking at technology. Have we implemented anything? No, we have not, but we are definitely looking at it and doing our research on it, because it does make sense if we can put early detection systems within certain areas of the bosque that it would behoove us to do so.
And you mentioned the last big fire we had in the bosque was 2006, and
in this particular area.
In this particular area, and in addition to that, we had this freak snowstorm in the fall that broke a lot of limbs. So are you saying there's quite a bit of fuel out there?
There is some fuel out there, yeah, some ground fuels now that those branches are down, and that's where we need to go back in and work together to get some thinning projects going on in the bosque, whether it's via grants, federal grants, local, state, whatever it is. I think we're stronger as a unified voice as the county and the village and the city coming together to try to mitigate what we can within the bosque.
So residents that have property with lots of large trees surrounding their property, is it your opinion that if the trees are healthy, dead wood's been cut away, there's not much of a hazard there, even if it's near the house?
Mayor, trustees, what we did, let's see, it's been back in May, we held a town hall at the request of the village down at Taft Middle School, and during that town hall, it was very sparsely attended, unfortunately, but we did offer a service to the residents of both Bernalillo County and Los Ranchos, and that is to have our wildland coordinator come out to your home and do an evaluation, do a walk around with you to try to create as much defensible space as possible. I would highly recommend that anybody in the village that lives in proximity to the river take advantage of that. Free of charge, Lieutenant Scrundle will come out and just walk around with you and let you know, you've got 10 foot, 20 foot, 50 foot, and if you're on a big piece, 100 foot worth of clear space, and we'll work hand in hand with you to identify that. And if you don't have resources, we can help to connect you with some resources that may be able to go out and clear your area.
So you're saying even if your trees are very healthy, it could still create a fire hazard if it's near your house?
It's definitely worth it because it's not just the trees, it's some of the ground fuels. And what we're really finding is that it's openings inside of your eaves and places where you should be putting caulking and such in it. It's the embers that actually work their way inside of those areas and actually start the fire. It's not so much the flame itself. It's, the flame is a couple feet away. It's those embers that are flying through the air and they get latched underneath areas or penetrations inside of your home or your barn or sheds. So that's another thing that we will go through and walk with you and find those penetrations to try to seal.
Have you noticed that some trees are worse than others? I mean, what comes to mind, maybe like pinon trees, for example, with all the sap in them, right? Even if they're healthy and green, is it still?
Mayor, trustees, I'm not real great on all of the trees, which ones are better or worse. It's more important, again, just to keep that space cleared around your home. I mean, we're talking wood piles. There's a lot of things outside of even just trees that we don't think about necessarily that could potentially, because again, I just learned about the openings that we have inside of our homes, our attics. If we don't have those good screens on it, the ventilation, they can get inside of there and light the roof on fire. So there's a lot of things that we don't think about. Trees are the easy one to think about. There's so many other pieces, but I would definitely encourage you to take advantage of the service that we're providing and have us come out and take a look at your place. And you can get a hold of me through Fred, and we'll make sure that we get out.
And
all I
Chief,
have.
again.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Not to belabor the point, but again, that information as well would be really great to put into the newsletter.
Yep.
So that folks can get a sense of who they need to.
Mayor, trustees, we will send that. I'll have Kristen send that to Fred. We have a full layout of it that we've ran in our Burnco Connect, so we'll make sure that we get that to you.
And I was talking about eaves and cracks in the buildings. I think we're gonna have to end this meeting. I gotta go fix my house, so. Thanks, Chief.
You bet.
Very
Thank
much
you,
for
Mayor.
being here. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to another presentation with our traffic safety folks. Fred, would you come up and give us an update on where we are with traffic safety issues?
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'll try and keep this brief, probably like 2 hours.
Thanks.
But Tammy already told me that she's here for the meeting, so make it quick. So just a couple of things real quick on some public safety things, and I wanted to update you all on some things that we're doing. We have started in the last 6 months a neighborhood association group. I don't see Teresa Rael here. She's spearheading that, and she's got a mailing list of about 15 to 20 people that are key throughout the village in neighborhood associations or neighborhood groups. And so we get together every couple of months, meet, talk what's going on, see what's going on. We have a meeting on Thursday night at 6 that we'll do that again. And so hopefully it just keeps the communication going with the different groups and stuff. And then she sends out a monthly email list on our calls for service through Bernalillo County to keep everybody kind of up to date what we're doing. So I just want to thank her for that. A couple other things on the public safety end. We have 5 what we call flock safety cameras located within the village. They're license plate readers, and what they do is they track every vehicle that goes by there. If it turns out it's stolen, it alerts the sheriff's deputies in their cars, and they can deal with that. But it also allows them to search vehicles and search things. If we have a major incident, say at 4th and Osuna, they can get on there and look at the cameras, go back, and I'll use this as an example. If it was a white bumper sticker or bumper sticker on a white pickup truck, they can search that and it'll pull up everyone that went through that area. So we've got 5 of those. We're looking in July next new fiscal year of adding 6 more throughout the village. Again, it just gives us a little bit more of a sense of security. We've been updating ordinances. You'll have one tonight that we're going to talk about, but we're kind of looking at all the different things in order to make things a little bit easier. So on the traffic safety side, before I get off of that, National Night Out is a national program that is always the first Tuesday of August. And we get the community together with law enforcement. Edgewood Park has been doing that for years now. Let's see, Henry.
Nope.
That was the key to be quiet, right? So we're looking at doing a couple more of those, and we're going to discuss this at Thursday night, and then get that out to the public. But it'll be on Tuesday, August the 5th. So what are we doing for traffic safety? Well, I think we've been pretty busy this last year with Keene and stuff. We purchased 3 traffic data collectors, little black boxes that I put up on street signs or telephone poles or whatever to collect speed and traffic data. It gives us some phenomenal data without anybody knowing what we're doing. We also have speed boards that we have throughout the village, portable speed boards, permanent ones, and so we're doing a little bit of both. So if I can get the next slide up, I'm going to talk a little bit. We've put some speed humps up. I believe it was in April, we got speed humps on Ortega Road, El Pueblo, and Green Valley. We also included some additional crosswalks on Ortega, El Pueblo, and Green Valley. That's just the first start. We hope to add some additional speed humps on the eastern part of El Pueblo and Ortega Road. Those are the wider portions of the roadway. In this next fiscal year in 25-26. And I will tell you that I think they're making a significant impact. If I can get the next slide. So you look at, and you have these in your packet, so I won't spend a lot of time on them, but we've seen a drastic reduction in the regular speed, and then we've seen a significant reduction in the vehicles traveling over 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. And the reason I use that 10 miles an hour is law enforcement usually does not, shouldn't say this too loud, but we don't usually stop and cite people unless they're doing 10 or 11 miles an hour over the speed limit. So that's kind of our benchmark. And so I will tell you that, just for an example, on Ortega Road west of Guadalupe Trail, less than 1% of the vehicles are doing 35 miles an hour or over, 0.78%. That's unbelievable when you get right down to it. So they are working. Or do you still have a few people that are don't care? Absolutely. No matter what you do, they're gonna do that. But I think we've seen a significant decrease in those speeds. I talked to quite a few neighbors on Ortega. There was a big campaign to get more input that some of the residents put there. I sent out some flyers and told them to email me and call me and stuff. And I've had 3 phone calls since then. 2 say they need some more speed humps, and 1 said, absolutely not, we don't need any more. So, but our plan is to add some additional ones on the east portion from Guadalupe Trail to 4th Street on both Ortega, El Pueblo, and on Green Valley next fiscal year. And same thing with crosswalks. Any place we can place a crosswalk or some type of crossing, we're looking at doing that. So a couple of other things that we're doing in discussions with the mayor, there's a lot of new traffic signs out, stop signs, pedestrian crossing signs that have LED lights on them that flash when traffic approaches them. We're going to explore those on some of, especially on Rio Grande Boulevard, just to try and get people's attention a little bit and to try and get them to slow down. And trail crossing signs, anything we can do to try and get people's attention to slow down, we're going to work on. The traffic enforcement, I will tell you that Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department spends a lot of time out there. May not seem like it all the time, but in 2023, they made just under 1,500 traffic stops in the village. 2024, a little over 1,600. And through May of this year, they've already done close to 1,000. A couple of things they're doing. When you see a SO unit there parked on Rio Grande Boulevard, it may have somebody in it, and it may not. You won't know. So we're trying to do what we call them decoys, just to get, again, people to slow down a little bit. Some of the other things we're looking at, automated speed enforcement, speed cameras. The mayor's asked me to look into that. I've met with Bernalillo County, who is running a program right now. I met with their program people back in the early part of May about them putting some speed cameras on Paseo del Norte. They pulled up their data, and according to their ordinance, the data does not meet the criteria for speed cameras because it's the speed, but also serious crash data. And so that's part of the thing. So what we've talked about doing with Bernalillo County is we will adopt our own ordinance and then allow them to administer the program for us under their program, and then we can place them wherever we need to place them. So we're working on that. And so we're looking at Rio Grande, we're looking at Paseo, we're looking at mobile speed vans type things, anything that we can. And of course, all that will have to come back before you all, and you all have to make the decision if that's what we want to do or not. But Bernalillo County, the discussions I've had with the deputy county manager there and their county attorney is, the mayor and I think we'll discuss, really behooves us to piggyback their program. Otherwise, we've got to hire a hearing officer, we've got to hire additional staff to go through all that stuff, and they've already got it in place, and so in the contract, so it seems the best thing to do is let them do it. A couple other things we're doing on ICIP, and will come up tonight at the meeting, reconstruction of Rio Grande Boulevard to include traffic calming measures. Actually, we have, I believe, the mayor and Maria were able to secure about $900,000 to start a study on that. And we're looking at that, and again, to do not only rebuilding the road, maybe adding additional space for bike lanes and stuff, but also the key in there is to do traffic calming measures along Rio Grande Boulevard. Same thing on Osuna from 4th Street to 2nd Street, asking for money to do that. El Pueblo and Ortega, the reconstruction, traffic calming measures for east of Guadalupe Trail to 4th Street, and then Paseo del Norte, sound barriers. We are currently working with a company out of Albuquerque. It's a UNM professor to do some noise study stuff for us on Paseo. He's got some technology out there. It's not ready to go out and make enforcement activities, but he's hoping to have that set up probably in the next month on Paseo to get us some better numbers on what the noise levels are, and then we can help look at that. So with that, I think we've been kind of busy. Hopefully, from in July it starts again. We can start. I talked to Keene. We're not going to wait till next spring to put the additional speed humps in. Hopefully, we can get them done in August or September. So, and I'll be glad to stand for any questions.
Thanks, Fred. Any questions?
I do, but you go. Yeah, I'm gonna, two things, speed humps in Rio Grande Boulevard and the noise abatement from Paseo del Norte. This is more of a comment, maybe not really a question. So I think the interesting thing about putting speed humps on Rio Grande Boulevard also helps the side streets because, you know, the traffic that's cut through traffic, they're going on the side streets to get to Rio Grande Boulevard. And if you can slow them down for about, 5-10 minutes, they're more likely to take an alternate route. I think people are just trying to shave off that 5 minutes from their commute. So that'll be an interesting, I don't know if your study could capture that, but once we get speed humps on Rio Grande Boulevard, my expectation is we may see less traffic on the side streets because of that as well. Yeah. So the other thing is, did you want to comment about that? Or?
Again, the study that we're going to do is going to look at all types of traffic calming measures on Rio Grande. It can be bulb outs, it can be traffic circles, it can be reducing the lane width. There's hopefully they're going to come in and do a comprehensive study for us to say, here's what we need to do.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to focus on speed humps, but I can tell you just when the speed humps went on Guadalupe Trail between Chavez and Ranchitos, I noticed a difference. You know, but it's interesting, before they get put up, about a third of the people want them, and a third of people hate them, and the other third don't care, right? But as soon as they go up, people realize it does make a difference, you know? But yeah, you're right. So, speed humps is not the only tool. Yeah. So I found it interesting that you were talking to a professor at UNM about noise coming from Paseo del Norte. And I thought where you're going with this is that there might be other technologies for noise abatement, because the go-to solution is a big solid concrete wall, right? And which is very expensive if you have to run it, you know, I don't know, thousands of feet, right? But in my mind, my engineering brain here, there's got to be other methods to abate that noise, and that would be a lot less expensive, and there might be something that we should explore if we can't afford the solid concrete walls, right? Are you talking to him about that sort of thing?
Yes, Mayor and Trustee Benavides, I will tell you, I just visited Croatia a month ago, and the sound barriers that they have on their roads are not concrete walls. There's a variety of different things, so I think there's a lot of things that are out there that can be looked at. You know, of course, that's a Department of Transportation thing, but if we can get and show them that there is a noise issue, which most of us believe there is, but without the data, it's going to be very tough to get them to fund a large project like that. And it's a large project, to be honest with you. It's not something that's going to be done overnight, and not something that's going to be done for $1 million. So
correct, yeah. That's it. That's all I have. Trustee Kiefer?
Thank you, Fred. This is a great report. It's, I'm really excited at seeing a lot of this data and kind of all the tools that we're using to help combat what we've been hearing a lot of. One of the things that I noticed on here, and really I'm just saying to kind of keep it in our forefront, is because we've talked about it, and I don't think you have the answer. I know I don't have the answer, is the cut through traffic with Vineyard. And, you know, I saw traffic calming measures on Osuna between 4th and 2nd. I'm like, well, are we just gonna move more traffic to Vineyard by doing something like that, right? And that's the one road, well, I'd say Vineyard and probably Willow are the two roads that kind of get the most forgotten in the village when we start talking traffic calming, because it's only part of the roads that belongs to the village. And so I kind of want to just kind of keep that in the forefront of, if there's ideas, if we do, I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I know there was a major accident not that long ago at 4th and Montano that had everything closed off. And so my husband and I had to circle down by Smith's all the way back around and ended up Vineyard to 2nd Street, right? I mean, otherwise it was going all the way either to Osuna or, you know, and so I just want to figure out if there's a way to help those people.
So, Mayor and Trustee Kiefer, I will tell you that I've done several traffic counts and speed counts there on both Vineyard and Willow in anticipation of what we do on Osuna, so that if we'll see if we get any increases or whatever, so that then we can then do whatever traffic calming measures on those streets also, so that it will discourage people from using those as cut-throughs. So
My fear is Vineyard already has those huge speed bumps, and that doesn't deter people. So it's like, how much more can we do? Besides maybe just a road closed sign.
One way.
That's right.
So,
Any other questions?
I had a couple, Mayor. Fred, great presentation and good job, and I know you care and you're doing everything you can to help the village, so thank you for that. Rio Grande. I think we need to look at Rio Grande in a really comprehensive way. It shouldn't just be about traffic calming per se with things like speed bumps and so forth. It should really look at Rio Grande Boulevard from many angles. And so I'd hesitate to suggest that we start putting speed bumps on, or humps, or any of them on Rio Grande Boulevard until we look at it comprehensively.
No, there's no, Mayor, Trustee, there's no current plan to put anything on Rio Grande at all yet until we get that comprehensive study done to tell us what we can do. And then, of course, then it's going to come down to funding.
Sure.
So.
Sure, yeah. So that's all I had. I did note that we have $900,000 in the, from a grant, I'm assuming?
Right.
That is purely for
a section of Rio Grande Boulevard from Montano to Chavez, is that correct, John?
Montano to Chavez.
Mayor and trustees.
So
Yes, it's from the south
centering
end
on the Buffalo curve.
till Chavez. So it does take, and it's basically reconstruction of Rio Grande. So that's phase one. I think we have 5 phases in there, just to make sure that we're taking care of not only just reconstruction, but other public safety issues.
I'm glad to hear that. I again, and I've done this before, but I again recommend that we go with a planner, not an engineer, to look at that. Because engineers have their toolbox, and there aren't any other tools beyond that toolbox. No offense to our trustee Benavides. I know you're a mechanical and not a civil, but I think taking a different look at it would be a recommendation that I would have. And there are companies that do that.
I would just say, just for information, give kudos to Mr. Avila. He put the application together and put it in front of the DOT, and we were able and successful.
Nice.
So to his credit, that got done. Anyway, Trustee Rena?
Fred, well, thank you very much. I also thought the report was very well done. And as someone who lives in Ortega, I can tell you that I've seen a difference. I've seen a difference. I wonder though, is there a way to use other types of speed calming on Ortega and other streets that would mix it up a bit from just the tables? Because I have seen cars that just, again, it's fewer, certainly, that just run over them, okay? If there was actually a speed bump in there between tables, that may even slow them down a little bit more, okay? I don't know whether that is even possible or not.
Mayor and Trustee Renner, the biggest issue is the speed limit is 25 miles an hour on village roads. People have an expectation to be able to do 25 miles an hour. If you put one that only allows them to do 3 miles an hour, and it causes either damage to their vehicle or it causes an injury type thing, then the village can become liable for that, okay? Again, what we're trying to do is keep people to do 25 miles an hour. The other thing is if you slow them down too much, then it becomes a traffic congestion problem. Especially when their Paseo del Norte is shut down because of a crash and you've got all those extra vehicles going down Ortega or El Pueblo, then it really jams things up. So what our plan is to put some additional speed humps, the ones that we currently have on the eastern part of Ortega and El Pueblo, and we think that that speed will go down even lower. You're never going to stop the 1 or 2 drivers that wants to go and see how fast they can go, because they don't care about anything anyway. But and like I said, the people that called me, I had 3 phone calls. One said, we don't need it anymore. And I won't say what she said about the speed humps. She says, why are you penalizing me for these other people? Okay, but I think, again, the most reports and the people that I've talked to, especially on the west end of Ortega, from Rio Grande to Guadalupe Trail, have seen a significant impact on the speed coming down. And again, I don't know that you're ever going to stop somebody from speeding if they want to. But also, I think we have to be realistic that, you know, people have to be able to drive to get someplace, unfortunately. And, you know, somebody asked me the other day, well, how come you can't put the speed humps that we put on Ranchitos by the ditch? Well, those speed humps were put in because we had people ramping the ditch and crashing into people's houses. And so we made it significant enough that they almost have to stop to keep them from doing that. But if we include additional or more speed humps on Ranchitos East, they'll be the regular speed humps so that, again, people have the expectation to drive 25 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I look at from a public safety standpoint, is to make sure that I give you the best advice that I can, and saying, yeah, you can put the bigger speed humps there, but if it causes somebody to lose control of their vehicle and crash and injure somebody, then we have to answer for that.
Well, you know, and I guess thank you, Fred. I certainly, you appreciate that. The other question I have, just very quickly, is to find a way to slow down the traffic on the curve on Rio Grande that intersects with Green Valley. You cannot see the cars coming, you know, and it's it's difficult. I know that the accident data suggests that it's not a problem, but it really is a problem.
So, Mayor and Trustee Wright, one of the things John and I and Maria met today with parametrics. They've submitted a scope of work to do those types of things on Rio Grande. Traffic circles, some types of other things that we can do to look at that. So absolutely, we're looking at that.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Thanks, trustees, and thanks, Fred. Not quite 2 hours, but close. Anyway, thank you very much. Anyway, we'll move on now. Fortunately, we're now down to new business, and item A was removed from the agenda prior motion, so we are now on item B, ordinance number 302, adopting the amendments of Chapter 7, Article 4, Section 7.41, 7.42, 7.43, 7.44, and 7.4.5 of the Criminal Code. Mr. Chappell.
Mayor and trustees, I have to ask the question, is this a public hearing? Do we need to swear in witnesses for these new business items?
Yes. I have 2 individuals who signed up to speak under this item of business.
Okay. Is anyone that's going to speak on these items, would you stand and raise your right hand? Would you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Ms. McKenzie, Ms. Nangeroni, you wanted me to sign you up under, you're going to pass on those? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have in front of me a red line copy. This was published or approved for publication, as you know, in the last board meeting. There are some questions raised about some of the criminal offenses that we did not look at because we were looking at the camping and that sort of thing. And so what I did in the interim, and they made very few changes, was to go back and for those criminal offenses, for instance, take those that were now current in criminal offenses under the state code that had a definition. And if you would like, there's only a few of them, I could be happy to hand these out so you can see exactly the differences between what you approved before and now.
Thank you.
to us? What's that? You emailed us a red line version back in May. Is this different?
That was before the last hearing.
Bill, this is different than what's in our packet as well?
That is, that is what is in your packet. But the changes that were in your packet from the last meeting to this meeting are what's in red. In other words, there were a few adjustments since you sent it for publication. And as you will see, the first page, we just added the word public before affray because that was in the state. Under item H, we had a definition for criminal damage that was no longer in the state statute. The name was changed to criminal damage, so we made that change. We had the question of lurking. That's no longer there, and the closest thing in the state statute was stalking, so we substituted that word. As you will see over in the definition of camping materials, based on comments, we added the use, that recreational vehicles were part of camping materials because of their definition is very broad. And those were the main changes, as you will see from what you read and discussed in the last hearing and sent it for publication.
All right, first we probably need them, let me look at this. Danielle, do we have anyone signed up to speak on this?
So the two individuals chose to pass, but we do have Public Safety Officer Fred and Tyler Jenkins as a captain to speak if we have any questions to direct to them.
Trustees, I'd like to have the captains speak at least just in brief about, we've had a conversation with him before in the development of this, and I think it would be, important for the community to at least get a perspective of what the captain feels he needs in the toolbox as it relates to helping deal with issues of camping and loitering, et cetera, or stalking as we have now in our amended version.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have many concerns about the statute. My concern would be in the aftermath, after our enforcement of it. I was just given a copy of this new ordinance packet today. I sent it to our county attorney and I'm awaiting his review and reply. Obviously, I'm not an attorney. I don't get to make those calls. If I had to today, I would enforce it. I don't see anything that jumps out at me as a major violation of constitutional rights. My concern with relocating people camping is where are they going to go? That'll be something that we have to possibly address in the future. We've purchased hotel rooms out of our own pockets in the past, but that can't be the go-to. A lot of the homeless shelters in the area will not take single men. They'll only take families or women. So that's another problem we run into. But for the village, enforcing these sort of ordinances and talking about speed humps and traffic cameras and flashing lights, that's the reason the village is as nice as it is, because you guys get ahead of it, develop ordinances, and then enforce it. So that's my take on it. Nothing major or glaring jumps out at me.
All right, thank you very much for that.
I guess I heard you guys mention RVs being added into the verbiage. Are we disregarding camping in a non-recreational vehicle? Camping in a Honda Civic, per se? That's a possibility. People camp in a lot of things.
Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees, the reason we added RVs, for instance, if somebody pulls into one of our public parks and sits there for too long, it's a problem. And if you look at the definition of RVs Under the ordinances, it's very broad. It talks about any kind of a vehicle and all this kind of thing. So it's a very broad definition that could constitute camping materials. And as far as the constitutional approach, as you know, the law was basically that you could not control this in any significant way. The town of Beaverton, Oregon, took this to the U.S. Supreme Court. And so what we have put in this is really a map from Beaverton, Oregon, that was specifically approved by the U.S. Supreme Court as to what was enforceable. We have not put in here, tried to put in all of the enforcement areas. What is in here is that you can cite them for misdemeanors and that kind of thing. And the village specifically has the authority to deal with agencies and other that deal with people in this condition, okay? But there's nothing in here that says you pick them up and move them out, that kind of thing. So this is really just a criminal misdemeanor kind of thing and a direction to work with the agencies and governmental that can work with the people in the condition in which they are. But like I say, constitutionally, it tracks very carefully the U.S. Supreme Court approval.
So we're not looking at arresting people for camping. We're looking at starting a process to relocate them.
Mayor and trustees, you're looking at giving them citations or complaints for petty misdemeanors. Is basically what it is. And to start a process to see if you can find an agency or whomever that deals with people in that condition that could remove them or move them somewhere else.
Wonderful. More questions?
Okay. Any other questions? I do. Go ahead. Go ahead. Trustee Benavides?
Okay, so, all right, so this, let's say this ordinance is in place, and we have somebody camping on our public right-of-way. This gives you the tools to remove that campsite, I assume, right? And now the question is, what do you do with the individual, right? Are you saying you normally take that person to a motel or something like that, and that was a cost that was being borne by the county? Is that what I heard?
We've done it in the past. I've bought hotel rooms, and I probably could not name a single deputy who's not bought a hotel room. It's kind of a special circumstance. Somebody with children who has nowhere else to go, domestic violence victim, things of that nature. The person just, not gonna happen.
We should give that some thought. I mean, as I'm talking about us up here, if there's a cost associated with that, moving somebody, I don't think it's a large cost. At least give them a place to stay for the night, right?
But yeah, and my understanding was, so initially I thought this ordinance was, oh, you're camping, you're out of here. It sounds like the idea is, here's your citation. This gives us teeth to now find a solution and move you in the next day, 2, 3, however long. If I'm understanding that correctly, if that's the goal, I think that's a great goal.
Yeah, Mayor and members of the trustee, the penalty for this violation is a petty misdemeanor. Under state law, a petty misdemeanor is a fine of $500 and incarceration of up to 180 days. As a matter of village policy, and I think we need to codify this, we do not consider incarceration, because if you do have that as one of the options, the village is required to provide counsel, defense counsel for people who cannot afford it. And that's only involved if there's incarceration. So this does not involve picking somebody else, which in fact would be similar to incarceration, and taking them to a motel room or anything else. I think what the deputy's saying is that they run into situations where it's not necessarily the law, but just as a matter of humanity, they try to help them get off the street because something's happened. That kind of an option is not under this ordinance. If there is a humanitarian or some kind of agency that can do that, this ordinance specifically allows the village to contact and coordinate with that agency to handle that kind of situation. That's as far as it goes.
I mean, what I was thinking was like motel vouchers or something like that, you know, for a night or something.
Mayor and Trustee Benavides, the village could adopt something like that, but I did not, that was not part of what we were doing.
That doesn't have to be in the ordinance, does it?
I believe that it would have to be in that ordinance if you were going to provide financial support for someone, you need to justify that, and it would have to be an ordinance on the part of the village to adopt that.
I mean, here's the options. It sounds like we're not going to incarcerate people. So you move their campsite and leave them here, or do you put them in a motel room someplace? Right? Those are the options, right?
Well, for the sheriff's office specifically, if we're dealing with somebody who's destitute, we have a lot of resources to offer. We don't necessarily have to arrest somebody. We can come back the next day or in a couple days with a team of social workers and clinicians and mental health personnel. Maybe we're not going to solve the problem permanently, but we can try.
But I mean, the shelters, you said, you know, you're more inclined to find a room in a shelter if there's a family involved, right?
Correct.
But if there's not, I don't know what the options are.
I think maybe I jumped the gun with assuming this was a get this person off the street right now type ordinance. It doesn't sound like it's that. So we can find shelters for anybody given enough time. It's midnight. We have this male that is on the side of the street. A lot of shelters are not going to take that person. Whereas in the middle of the night, they will take a family. That's not exclusive, but that's been my experience.
Okay.
I think the most important part, maybe to get to your point, Trustee Benavides, is what the captain just said, is that typically today, without any of this ordinance in place, that's what they're doing. They're basically encouraging other agencies and going out and looking for opportunities to place folks if out in a shelter or or even maybe a voucher that another city might issue. However, the dilemma is that when you have folks who don't want to go and who want to remain on the side of the street, there's got to be some incentive to get them to recognize that they've got to move on. And the citation may be a one step into the process that creates at least the tool to encourage that there is going to be a penalty for continuing to reside on the public right-of-way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking in the middle of the winter, let's say it's going to be 10 degrees at night, and this person's been relying on a tent and a warm sleeping bag, and you take away those items from that person. I think that person's not going to want to stay, you know, spend the night without any kind of a shelter, even if it's just a sleeping bag and a tent, right?
Sure. Yeah. And I think in those particular cases, again, the sheriffs would look for facilities within the metro area to locate those individuals. I think that the challenge as it relates for us, fortunately, at this point, you know, we don't have nearly the same level of folks in our community as you do in Albuquerque, for example, or even in the other areas of Bernalillo County. But our solution is that we leave them on the street at this point unless the sheriff's officers are able to get them convinced to move on. The key is, again, what the captain said, is the citation also helps us trigger the opportunity to bring in other agencies that provide services and to try and encourage those individuals to relocate to a facility that might help them with whatever issue they might encounter at the moment. But it is not the panacea, and it's for sure. Now, we could, to follow up with this, not in this ordinance, but I mean, if we decided as a community that we wanted to put in a voucher system that would be available to a certain amount, we could do that down the road and have a conversation about that as part of a budget issue that we could include, as that would say, if there is an enforcement of this, we would provide X voucher for a number of individuals to spend the night. But it doesn't have to be in the criminal code.
Yeah.
It could just be part of a conversation on a budget item. And I get it. None of us want to be the kind of person that's going to leave someone out on the street. But the challenge is also, I think the real reality is that I feel for the folks who are driving in the street and someone like this happens to fall into the street and someone hits them and hurts them. There's also that reality that citizens of the community want to see us or want to see these folks be safe, and at the same time not be the victims that might have created a situation that they didn't, see coming, if you will. So it's a way to give us, as I said earlier when I was talking about this at the previous meeting, is it just gives, I think, our law enforcement folks another tool, another way to create the record on an individual that maybe helps us get them at some point into a facility and helps them. But I'm sympathetic to your concern as well. I mean, I don't want to see someone spend the night on the street after we've taken their possessions. And there is another process for that down the road, which will be if we take possessions and those sort of things, how do we maintain those possessions? Because the courts have also found that that's their personal property, and that property needs to be, if you will, placed someplace where they can have access to it at some point. Doesn't mean you keep it forever, but you've got to have a structure for that.
That would be the added benefit of having a motel room. Now they have at least one night to put their property in. So they can take it with them.
Mayor and trustees, one of the places we started here was, it appeared that the village was the only spot around that did not have some anti-camping or some kind of ordinance. Albuquerque has some, Bernalillo County has some, Rio Rancho has some, Corrales. So it wasn't like we wanted this to be the primary camping spot. So
I'm totally in favor with what we're doing here. Don't get me wrong.
Okay. Any other comments? Trustee Kiefer?
I guess I just had a question. Is there a way, and, Mayor, I'm kind of putting you on the spot and I don't mean to, with your experience, to do some type of MOU with the city of Albuquerque where they can utilize their services that they use for their unhoused population that we can kind of piggyback on? I know they've got their hands full too, but maybe there's some type of
Well, and Trustee Kiefer, that's a great question, and as a matter of fact, we are creating an MOU. I visited with the mayor several weeks ago and with his department head, and they're putting together an MOU where the Community Safety Department, which is the outreach department that the city of Albuquerque uses as our first response to folks who are living on the street, if you will, to give them some services. They have in fact been and spoken to the individual that's on 4th and Osuna, and have now offered and provided some services for a number of months. So that is part of, I think, the other piece of this is the outreach with professionals that have, the background to deal with folks who may have, alcohol, substance abuse, et cetera, or just other issues that, mental health issues, et cetera, that professionals need to deal with. And what I'm really looking forward is trying to get that relationship structured so that, again, so that the sheriff's officers aren't the mental health counselors and the drug counselors and every other counselors that needs to be out there, that we have some real professionals. So there is that piece that hopefully we'll have in the next 30 or 45 days an MOU that we can approve, that we can, where the city will be providing that service for us.
Because I think that's the full circle that we're kind of
Right.
trying to attack. Trustee Benavides, were you gonna, or did you change your mind?
No.
Because if not, I will.
So you're giving a presentation, and just a question about process. Then we're going to make a motion, right? And will there be discussion after that? Or is it now or never?
We're in the middle of such right now. We probably
Okay.
should have gone back to the school motion. So,
Well,
but
then,
anyway,
okay, so-
there were two speakers, obviously. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Trustee, but I think we wanted to have the captain say a few words, and then Fred was going to say a few words about it. Captain, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I will just add that even if it's your ordinance, we are still the ones enforcing it, and we still have to worry about the liability and the humanity of the process. So just because something is on a piece of paper doesn't mean that we're gonna rip people's sleeping bags off of them in their tents and say, go figure it out. I think just as community caretakers, perhaps somebody sleeping in 10-degree weather maybe needs to be forced into a shelter that night so we don't find them in the morning. But just keep that in mind. Like, we still have a responsibility on our end as well, no matter what a piece of paper says. Fair?
Fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
I do have,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Trustee.
yeah.
I did have one more thing, and actually the two of you would probably be ideal to talk about it. And I understand what's driving this ordinance change in the criminal code. It's about the encampments, and I totally get it. And I don't want to lose focus of that, but there are other things in here that probably need fixing. And I'm okay to not fix them tonight, but I'll point out one thing to you that I think needs fixing. So people have livestock here, and livestock is slaughtered, and oftentimes it's a gun is used, right? So in here it says no guns, and I don't know if that's something you've ever tried to enforce. Okay.
No.
Okay, I mean, I assume the county doesn't have an issue with that if the, as long as you're far away distance from homes and things like that, right, Robert? Right?
I'm not overly familiar with a lot of livestock laws.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a wild guess and say in the state statute, there's probably an exception for livestock.
Okay. There's no exception in what's being proposed tonight. And I can say, I'm comfortable if we want to get something on the books right away, I'm okay doing that. But we should probably look at cleaning up some of these other things.
Mr. Chappell?
Mayor and Trustee Benavides, I don't disagree. My assignment comes, from the village, and my assignment was not to clean up the criminal code. It was to adopt an ordinance which was constitutionally enforceable. It was specifically related to camping and on the streets. We have that, and we have a lot of different ordinances in the village that could use some cleanup. They haven't worked on them. This one I don't think had been worked on since 1989 or something like that. So that was just beyond the scope of my assignment and as to what we wanted to do in this ordinance.
I get it.
Mr. Radosevich?
Mayor and trustees, I won't take up too much time, but I just want to give you a little bit more background. So one of the things, as the captain was saying, law enforcement should not have to be dealing with these individuals because it's not a criminal offense. So what we've tried to do is, and I've worked with Bernalillo County, they have a new mental health individual, a deputy county manager thing, and he's trying to change it so that their mental health people can respond directly to calls and not have to go through the sheriff's office. And the same thing with the city of Albuquerque. So we're trying to put both of those together so that we'll have the ability, when we get a complaint about something like that, we can then call them directly and they can then send people out try and work with them and get the resources available to them. The county has a lot of, and the city has a lot of money for vouchers or different other things. But this is just going to give the captain and his deputies that extra tool of the person that says, I'm not leaving, I don't want to do anything or whatever. And then, if we're forced to write a citation, then they may change their mind. And that's what we're trying to do is just, and I'm going to use the one that we've talked about on 4th Street for the longest time. Like during the winter, the coldest time, the sheriff's department spent probably 3 or 4 times a shift checking on that individual to try and get them into a shelter, to try and do whatever. So we're cognizant of that, and hopefully with this is just, as the captain said at the last meeting, just another tool in that toolbox that if we have to, as a last resort, go ahead and cite the individual and get them into court, and then the court can assist us in getting them more assistance in everything. So I think it's just, and as Mr. Chappell said, a lot of our ordinances could probably be reworked, but this was just something that we looked at, this specific thing, and as I said in my presentation, we're looking at a lot of the different ordinances to try and come up with some better ideas and some better things. So,
And Mayor, if I may finish up this, and trustees, the one thing I did hear that leaned in that direction, for instance, what the mayor is working on with the city and what Fred was talking about with the county, we now have an ordinance specifically that would authorize us to enter into those kind of MOUs and things to deal with those people. So we did take that one step to say, now then you can reach out and have specific authority under the ordinance to go in that direction.
Trustee Ranovich?
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. How many transients do we actually, I mean, I remember the person that was near the Walgreens. I think I've seen one other walking down El Pueblo one time. How many do we actually see?
Mayor and Trustee Ranovich, I will tell you it's probably a handful. But again, as stated earlier, City of Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Corrales, Bernalillo, everybody starts passing these ordinances, and it keeps, and if we don't have something, then next thing you know, we're the ones that are going to have to deal with some of the things. And so all we're trying to do is just, and again, it's not to lock people up, it's not to send them to prison. It gives us that extra tool that if we have to cite them into court, then the judge can then also get with those service providers and say, you need to go get with that. So that's what we're just trying to do.
Do you know if, and I've heard quite a few residents talk about this over the years, do you know if our only motel in the village accepts vouchers for people, homeless people? Because I've heard that from many people, and I'm just curious if you guys know, since you deal with it.
I haven't seen vouchers in a very long time, and I believe if I was going to try to bring a unhoused person to a hotel, I probably would not lead with that. I'd probably say I have a person who needs a place to stay.
Yep.
So the voucher program, I don't understand that side of it. It would probably have to be an arrangement with a hotel where they either bill the village or charge their median cost for a room throughout the year and say, here's 20 of them.
Right.
I don't know. That's something that we can all look into.
Okay. I just wondered because I've heard that about the motel over on 4th Street near your shop.
Yeah, things used to be simpler a long time ago.
Yep. Indeed. I have another question for you, Bill. There's a statement in this ordinance that's under 7.4.2 B3, and it says excessive noise is such noise as is measured at greater than 50 decibels, and the property line of the subject property in the daytime or greater than 40 decibels from the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. These provisions shall not apply to any noise from livestock or agricultural activities, but shall apply to noise from domesticated animals and household pets. I was going to ask the same question that Trustee Benavides asked about guns and livestock, but I have another. Does this give us more teeth to deal with the noise that comes from Paseo late at night?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, I can't answer that question because we have a state agency involved. We have a lot of different kinds of things. That particular provision has been in the code since at least when I started here in 2005, because it was attempted to be enforced on some outside entertainment, patio entertainment at restaurants and that kind of thing.
I get that.
So we did not change that whatsoever. It's been in the code for a long time. If we would like to adopt an ordinance that deals with traffic noise, we probably should look at the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, which we have adopted by reference, and some other areas to see if there's a more efficient way to do that.
I looked at this as a sort of a back door to all of the noise that we get from Paseo, and maybe giving it more teeth for people like yourself, Captain, or maybe not you, but your team, or the state police. Probably not City of Albuquerque, but it is in the village. It's an easement that goes through the village, and it struck me that there may be a way to try to control that by noise.
Mayor, Trustee Red, if you look at the 40 decibels from the property line, your normal conversation would violate that law. I don't believe you were on the commission or the Board of Trustees when actually Tiffany Justice and I brought to the board a new noise ordinance that was more realistic in nature, because somebody mowing their lawn is a violation of our ordinance, the way it speaks.
You and I have talked about that.
So I think, again, that's just, I realize that's why we're doing some of this noise stuff, so that we can get a better idea what those levels are. And I will tell you that I've done some just with some decimeters and stuff. While that sound travels a long ways, it's not necessarily above that level. So it's a complicated issue, and I think, as Mr. Chappell says, this has been on the books forever, and it's very, very, I will tell you, if I was recommended to the village, I would not encourage anybody to enforce that, because it's not enforceable, and you're probably going to violate somebody's constitutional rights. Because again, 40, I mean, you got to have reasonable levels, and a conversation level, or at 40 decibels, a refrigerator is louder than that.
Fred, I could see a day when we have noise meters on the side of roads that specifically target the people that race on Paseo many nights, definitely every weekend night, from 2 to 4 to whatever, every weekend, and some nights during the week. So I'm not suggesting that we're there yet, but I could definitely see a time where those hot rods can get controlled. And I was looking at this as maybe some teeth to get started on something like that. So that's all. But thanks for that explanation, because you're right. I had another comment on, let's see, this is on page 44. It's number 9 of that same section. And it says, any noise exceeding the decibel level set forth herein at the property line of the subject property shall be deemed to be prima facie, excuse me, evidence of violation of the provisions of this article. The provisions of this section do not apply to livestock. So it's just another case within this ordinance that says that. Just pointing it out. Is there any provision in this that can help with the property on Tascosa where there's a health issue that is somewhat related when there's no heat going to a house and other kinds of situations like that, that this could also be used for that situation that we had some residents talk about tonight?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, it's possible, but there are other statutes which are more specifically important in the ordinances and in the statute itself. I don't know if we want to go into this, but I can tell you on Tascosa, we've run into a very specific problem, and that is, it turns out that the mortgage on this property was one of the mortgages that was put into receivership in 2008 when the Fannie Mae was shut down and went into receivership. There is an act which preempts state law in the enforcement of those kinds of mortgages and prohibits, without the receiver's consent, of imposing any lien on the property. They have published their criteria that they will not consent to any liens on the property, even though we have a resolution that says we can go in and do it by law. That constitutes a lien, and so we run into a problem. We have the attorneys working on that, looking at a different angle to see if there is any way that, in spite of that, a lender can still be required to clean up a property if it's created a public health nuisance while they have it tied up in a foreclosure and foreclose other people to work on it. So right now we have a federal preemption against our actions, and we've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to try to get around that, but we haven't gotten there yet.
So, Mr. Chappell, this wouldn't be a way in to be able to do that? Because those folks, we thought we fixed that Tascosa problem. I believe it was last September, something like that, and here it's still there.
We passed the resolution under the state process in which we could go in and clean it up, and we could get reimbursed with a lien because it constitutes a lien. Because there's a lender that objected in the foreclosure action, in which the village is also a party because we have a prior lien. We've tried to enforce that, and we've run in, the lender has now raised the preemption problem, and we've sort of hit a brick wall there.
Well, there's just, I look for things like that sometimes, just to maybe find ways around issues like this, because that's crazy. And I thought this might be one. So I don't think I had anything else.
Very good, very good. Well, that's creative. We now need a motion to approve this adoption. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Ordinance number 302.
Ordinance number 302.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Mayor,
Sign?
apologies,
Oh, yeah,
this
you
is
go
a
to
roll
voice
call.
vote.
Yes.
I apologize. Let's
It's,
go to a voice vote. Thanks, Danielle.
thank you. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Rhino?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Let's now move on to item C, resolution number 2025-06-01, a resolution nullifying the Bernalillo County Clerk or notifying, excuse me, notifying the Bernalillo County Clerk of the at-large positions to be filled for the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque for the 2025 regular local election to be held on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve the resolution 2025-06-01.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
I have none.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Raynow?
Yes.
Now we will move on to Resolution 2025-06-02, a resolution adopting the First Amendment to contract number D191281/1, control number C32-12988, New Mexico Department of Transportation. We have Ms. Rinaldi, I believe, on Zoom to present this resolution. Yes. Thank you very much, Darnell. Let's see if Ms. Rinaldi is. Good evening.
Good
Ms.
evening,
Rinaldi.
Mayor,
Good
Board of
evening.
Trustees.
We
Can you
are
hear
on
me?
we are on that resolution at this point?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Maria.
Yes, so the resolution is simply adopting an amendment extending the time period of a 2021 legislative appropriation through June 30th of 2027. This is one of 5 legislative appropriations that make up the final portion of construction funds for 4th Street Phase 2. This, coupled with those legislative appropriations and federal Highway Administration funding, give us a little over $9 million to be fiscally constrained in consideration of what the engineer's estimate is for construction at this time. So this appropriation was expiring now, June 30th. We requested in the last legislative session that an extension be granted, and that is what you have before you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any other questions on this resolution? Trustee Benavides.
You might need to make a correction, but can I tell you what I think it is? All right, so on page 57, you say, extend the current moratorium until January 1st, 2026.
That's the wrong item.
That's the next item.
Oops.
This is the item prior to that, trustee.
I apologize. Yep, never mind. I don't have one.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All those in favor, oops, we gotta go to the vote, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Raynow?
Yes.
Very good. Now we'll move on to resolution number 2025-06-03, a resolution extending and amending the existing moratorium on processing of applications for new development within the village center zone with certain exceptions. Do we have a motion to approve?
Go ahead. Motion, do it, please. Okay, motion to approve resolution 20, make sure I got it right. I'm on the wrong page again. You do it. Go ahead,
Motion to
Frank.
approve resolution number 2025-06-03.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Yes.
Any discussion on this?
I have something that, sorry, I had
Go
my-
ahead,
I
Trustee
had my
Benavides.
notes messed up. I cross-referenced
You're
one thing. So this is about the moratorium, right, for
Yes.
VC. And on page 57, there's the sentence, the last part of the paragraph says, extend the current moratorium until January 1st, 2026, or until an updated ordinance is in effect. So I wonder if that is very definitive, Meaning, which one of the two do you pick? Or the one that, I think it should stay whichever comes first, or something like that, right?
I would ask Mr. Chappell to give us his legal analysis.
Mayor and Trustee Benavides, my recommendation was that you have a specific date and not an open-ended thing like this because of the restrictions on moratoriums. However, that was not the wording that came through, and from my perspective, I don't think it makes a lot of difference because both the amendment for the village center zone and the new zone, core commercial zone, are both moving through P&Z at the present time. It'll be before the board of directors in the next meeting or so. So I think this might be better wording, but I think it'll be resolved before that we get to that.
Well, plus it's in conflict because later on you go say, it is therefore resolved, this moratorium will be in effect until January 1st, 2026. So above that, you give a choice, and below that, you say it's definitive.
Well, the resolved is the specific date that I recommended.
Okay, yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I think in the whereas clause is just a aspirational thought that we might get this new ordinance in place long before January 1. But in the resolve clause, it has an absolute date of January 1. So I think we're all on the same page.
Okay, that's all.
That's all? Any other questions on this? If seeing no other questions?
No, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Red.
I got the 1 second look.
Split second. I'm just kidding.
Man.
I'm counting down, George.
Will we, so, I mean, I'm guessing that Robert and his group have not gotten far enough to figure this out yet. I understand that. It took us a while to do the rest of 4th Street. Will we be seeing any updates over the coming months? Will there be public meetings? Are there more public discussion about this? Or is there more public discussion about this in the coming, months till December 31st?
Trustee Ranovich, I'll make a few comments and I'll just turn over to Trustee Renow as well. But it was my goal that I did not want to have an extension. I thought we could get this done sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
However, as everything else, and it's important to recognize that the community has to have their opportunities to provide input.
I have no quibbles with extending it.
And so we are actually in the process now of going through the P&Z. So that it is moving a lot further than maybe you might have thought as it relates to where the process is. But Trustee Renow, you want to add any comments because you've been spearheading this for a while.
The work of the committee was actually completed a couple of months ago. And it's taken a while in order for the actual ordinance narrative to be put together. And then in addition, it's taken some time in order to contact the property owners who are adjacent to both the BC zone and the new commercial zone so that they're aware of it. So that then precipitated the need for the extension.
I see.
But we did, though, complete the work, and that was handed over to the village.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All those let's call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Renow?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item F, resolution number 2025-06-04, a resolution designating administrator under the Uniform Traffic Ordinance. Mr. Chappell.
Mayor and trustees, the issue came up about the ability to establish safety zones, things like that with reduced speed limits, for instance, on Rio Grande in front of the parks and things like that. And so The initial look was to see if we needed to make amendments to our traffic ordinance to do that. I then took a look at, because the village has adopted the uniform traffic ordinance, which is permissible, and it was done and it was updated, I think, in 2019, because you can adopt something by reference, but you can't take the upgrades. You have to do an amendment to do the upgrades. So I looked at that and to determine if there was a way to do it under the Uniform Traffic Ordinance as opposed to a new amendment to the traffic codes and so forth. And by the way, the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, we maintain a copy here at the village, but like if you go to Rio Rancho, it's adopted into their ordinance and they use it verbatim. The difficulty with that Uniform Traffic Ordinance is when it was adopted, well, all the way through it gives the administrator a lot of duties for enforcement, interpretation, and all of that kind of thing. If you look at Rio Rancho and their adoption, they designate somebody as the administrator. The village never did that. And so consequently, when it says the administrator can do certain things, it doesn't say who that is. So my thought to resolve this was for the village to adopt a resolution designating who the administrator is under the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, which we've already adopted. And for instance, with that particular question, Article 12.6, that's 1.3, it says, whenever the administrator determines upon the basis of an engineering survey, traffic investigation, that any speed limit permitted under state law or local ordinance is greater or less than is reasonably safe under the conditions found to exist upon which any street within his jurisdiction, he may declare a speed limit for that part which is effective at times determined when appropriate signs giving notice thereof are erected on the street, so forth. So it gives the administrator, based on some background, to adopt these special zones and so forth, and that's built into the Uniform Traffic Ordinance. So my belief was the easiest way to handle this was to designate an administrator that could go through this test, and there's a number of these in the ordinance. The suggestions was that the mayor or his designee or the administrator as a designee be designated as the administrator, as they would typically initiate that kind of process already. And so that's the genesis of this and what is trying to be accomplished.
Do we have any, we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-06-04.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Let's talk about this just in a practical manner. Mr. Chappell, the Uniform Traffic Code now just identifies an administrator, is that correct? Not an individual, but just has the name.
Throughout the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, it says the administrator can do this, the administrator does that, the administrator's, in charge of enforcement. The mayor, as chief law enforcement officer of the village by statute, is really the enforcing arm, although it may be delegated. So that's used out throughout the UTO. Without a definition, the village never adopted who the administrator was when it adopted the code.
So this simply identifies the actual administrator to be the administrator. I mean, so for lack of a way of saying it, redundancy. And so that's the idea here, is to clean up that so that can happen. And so that's sort of the nature of why this is before us. Anybody have any questions, any concerns?
Mayor, quick question. So is this, I mean, it uses the name administrator, but by doing this, it sounds like it could be anybody at the mayor's wish to fill that role. It doesn't necessarily have to be John and him wear another hat. So is it going to be John, or are we looking at potentially somebody else or a position that can be filled Or is this other duties as assigned?
Well, I believe the resolution indicates the mayor or his designee or the planning director as their designee, so there's not a specific individual named. It is a position in the ordinance. For instance, in Rio Rancho, they named their traffic director. You know, that's how it's done in those ordinances. So this was as close as the comments came as to how we could do that in the same kind of way that it's done in other municipalities.
So it could be any designee?
Could be any designee.
Of the mayor, of the planning and zoning director, or whoever else you mentioned.
Right, but there are certain, like say, it's not carte blanche, as you see in the UTO, what I just read. It has to be done on an engineer's recommendation or traffic study or whatever. It's not just carte blanche to change things, and that's kind of true throughout the UTO.
So I guess, Mayor, is your intent to be John at this point?
I have not actually made that decision.
Oh, okay.
I certainly would lean in that direction in that you have the administrator, but it could be one of you.
Yeah.
No, I would suggest, look, I think it's important to see, you know, what all the other requirements are. My only interest in this issue has been is to make sure we have a streamlined process to make it happen so that we don't find ourselves sort of trying to figure out who's that going to be this week, who's going to be that next week. And I do think that any appointment that I would make, I would certainly obviously consult with the trustees to make sure that we all know.
Would that consultation, Mayor, be in this meeting or separately?
I would suspect it'd probably be a very informal meeting so that we don't have any kind of issues with open meetings, et cetera, and have maybe Mr. Chappell work through that process. With that being said, do we have a motion to approve and a second? Any other questions? And all that being said, then let's move on to a roll call vote.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Raynow?
Yes.
I'll go to resolution number 2025-0605, a resolution adopting the FY 2027-2031 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, ICIP. Mr. Avila.
Never fails.
It never does.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, we have before you Resolution 2025-0605, adopting the capital improvement plan. After a year-long process, we're at that yearly time where we must accept or actually declare a resolution accepting ICIP projects. ICIP projects are not necessarily capital outlay requests. That comes later during the legislature or leading up to that. But they are projects that the village needs to designate because many other funding sources also require that projects be on the ICIP list. And so that is the resolution we need to pass now to have the official list at a later date before July 10th. I'll be required to make sure these capital projects are in the state system. So that's how that ties in with the resolution. These lists have been produced based on the history of the ICIP projects that have been partially funded, the need to be funded in the future. So those are what makes up the list, as well as costs and the needs of the village, particular facilities brought forward by staff and residents, and even, and again, if we have any Board of Trustees comments on that, we also work with those to produce this final list. Again, it's here that the resolution is made, so the list is made here, and is final here for a year as we address these projects.
Any questions? Well, first let's move, do we have people signed up to speak on this? We have one individual. Do we Madam Clerk, we have signed one individual who did not sign up, but would love to speak on this matter.
Mayor, that'll be at your discretion. The two other individuals who signed up are no longer present, so if you choose.
Please come up and state your name and address for the record, and
You'll have 2 minutes, please.
And ma'am, you'll need to be sworn in. You were not sworn in earlier. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes. Okay, Mary Calvani, I live at 1017 El Alhambra Circle. Anyway, so my question of this is, I attended the meeting on June 11th, and you did a SLIGO or whatever, a survey, et cetera. And I just wondered what you did with that information, because are you adjusting what you're requesting on this ICIP? Did you change, why did we have the survey is what my question is. Was anything changed on this? Like, for instance, somebody said, does anybody want the Chavez multi-use trail? I think it was pretty unanimously no. So if you did the survey, what was the purpose? If it hasn't changed anything, is my question. That's my only question. And what should we do if we have a question?
all right.
Further. Okay.
Thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
comments.
That's all.
And let me turn over to John. John or Kim is sitting in the back, who helped manage this process. If you all could at least elaborate on that particular question.
Mayor and Board of Trustees, yes, we did take the input from the meeting we had, I believe it was on the 10th of this month. That came in, and we saw some of the results. Those were, they're considered, and we'll have another public meeting a little later on to actually finalize capital outlay and project prioritization. And so that'll be shown when we do that, as well as ask for more public input in coming up with that final list. So that's how we're using it at this point. The list is as published so that everybody could see, that is the list that is already developed, and there can be changes to it, but this is the list that was published, so there's advance notice for everybody to look at that and say, okay, yes, I understand what projects are before us.
So, Mr. Avila, just to answer her question specifically, Chavez Road is still on the list. However, it's way down on the list as it relates to the number of other projects that had more support as a result of the survey.
And what he's saying, this isn't the final list.
And this is exactly right. Thank you very much.
As well, I would not be the one changing this list based on public input, so that is for the Board of Trustees to decide.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are now at, do we have a motion to approve, and then we can obviously change what we need to change. So we need a motion to put it on the table.
Sure. Motion to approve resolution number 2025-06-05.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, do we have any changes, any concerns with the resolution and the project listing? Okay.
Yeah, I do, but you
Let's begin with Trustee Ranovich.
Oh.
Because we know you'll have some changes.
Well, the first thing I wanted to say is that this list seems like a throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks kind of strategy. And so I find that not a good way to plan something like this. We really weren't a part of many of the things that are on this list. I have never, ever heard anything about moving Village Hall to the Anderson Building as one example, and then making this building a community center. So I would have a very difficult time voting on this tonight without some fairly major change, because I wasn't consulted. I don't know if any of the other trustees were, but it strikes me as being kind of many things that we haven't even talked about. And I understand what the list is. I understand that it's just a list, and the lower in the list something goes, whatever the item is, it's less likely to be funded or to look for funding. But I have quite a few comments. If you would like me to go through them all, Mayor, I'm happy to. But I do have lots. And so I just wanted to start by saying that, because things like changing Village Hall in that kind of way without having input, and I wasn't able to make the meeting. I was actually out of town that weekend. I know some of you were, and I'm assuming you did, ma'am, because you talked about it tonight. But did that actually come up as an item at the meeting on the 11th of May? That one thing? No, I'm asking John, I'm sorry.
This is the same list as was published before that meeting. So this was already on the list. It was discussed there.
This was published before we had our last meeting? This was on our last meeting? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying before that meeting that we had, and I don't know when we actually had this up on the website.
It didn't come before us, though.
This was the list that was published before that meeting.
It wasn't the list that we had before us at the last trustee meeting, because that was not on it.
Yeah.
That's one example.
I can't recall, but it probably wasn't, if that's what your recollection was. This has been developed, again, over time, making changes, and that was one of the changes made before the meeting for comment.
Yep.
So let me just suggest, Trustee Ranovich, I think the issue here is that the list that was put together that the community had an opportunity to respond to was the meeting on the 10th. So the community had an opportunity, at least at that meeting, to engage in the conversations on the projects list. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to look at the list, and obviously we can spend some time editing the list as we see fit as a group, or we can, the challenge for us in the process is that we need to approve this before the 1st of July. Is that correct, John?
Yes, that's correct. It'll be early July where this has to be input.
I don't mind having a special meeting if you all would like to do that. This is an important list, and I get that. I think also that the challenge with getting all of us on the same page without violating any other rules is we'll have the same level of conversation about each one of these projects. And so the thought was to put all the projects on the table, to use your point, and see what projects get funded. If there's a concern with policy that's been sort of represented here, such as the potential for converting this facility into a community facility and using perhaps the Anderson property for a village hall, those are policy questions and discussions to be had. And we could have that at a special meeting if that's how we want to handle this. But at the end of the day, either approach is going to require funding from the state.
Sure,
right?
I get that.
And so I think that was the idea here, was to get the list in front of and comply with the state requirements. And then obviously as we move forward, refine the list even further. And if the policy decision is that we don't want to do what was in particularly with that item, then it doesn't make the list for capital outlay that goes to the legislature. I mean, that's the best way to manage this process. I don't necessarily, I think some of these are obviously, this is a lot of money that we're asking for. Given our record, we didn't get this much money anyway, but it is an opportunity to present some things to the community. And that was what that meeting was about. But I'll leave it to you all to decide how you all want to manage through this.
If I could just continue for a minute. Sure. A decision, and like I said, I do have quite a few other comments here, but a decision like moving Village Hall is a big one. And I think it takes more discussion than having one meeting for the trustees on 1 month, and then that idea just mysteriously shows up at the next month, and we're asked to approve it. And that's exactly what, well, it's similar to what happened last year and the year before. Maybe, actually, last year was a bit different, but the year before it was very similar. So it brings up those memories for me. But I'd sure like to have more time to talk this through. And, you know, it being 9 o'clock, that could be a little bit of a conversation. So that would be my thought. On the Village Hall, just to use that as a further example, from a city planning perspective, and you probably know this, Mayor, from you know, your time at many governments in the state, the place for civic activity is where there is civic activity. And to grow, to help, one of the things that is a basis in city planning in many ways is to have a city hall, village hall, town hall, in places that are kind of a center for people. And that particular location is not that. Often towns and municipalities will choose a downtown. Well, we don't actually have a downtown, and the closest thing we have is 4th Street. And so I'm not suggesting 4th Street necessarily, but I am saying that it acts as a catalyst in city planning preferred approaches to try to create a center of civic activity alongside of retail activity, open space activity, et cetera. And this one, it strikes me as being only about open space activity and the Agri-Nature Center. So I have a basic question about it. That's that one particular thing that I would not be able to, you know, to put my weight behind that as one example.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so you're in a bit of a time crunch, and you need to get something to the state legislatures, and I don't know if we can have a special meeting right away. So what's missing from this list that we normally do is a ranking, right? And I don't know where this item would rank. And I don't, are we not ranking projects any longer?
Let me just say, I discourage the ranking with the staff for one particular reason, and that is because our ranking versus others' perspectives, and you know, what does it say? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. All of the rankings that we had in the last session were not even approved, or we didn't get any funding for any of those top-ranked projects. We got funding for projects that folks.
4th Street.
Right. We got zero money for 4th Street in the last legislative session.
Oh, I see.
We got money. We had $500,000 for open space, which was part of one of the ones that we ranked fairly high, but that's all. And it's been my perspective as it relates to going to the legislature and going to the governor and looking for funding outside the village is putting up as many projects as we can and looking for opportunities to fund some of them and get some of them, if you will. But a lot of times what you end up finding is you end up finding legislators who like, wait a minute, I like open space, so I'm gonna fund open space. I like roads, I wanna fund roads.
They don't care what it's ranked.
Right, the ranking doesn't seem to make, so the idea here was let's put as many of the projects that we think that we are all looking to get done and see if we can get some funding for those projects. But I am sympathetic to the point you're making, Trustee Ratnovich, as it relates to a facility change, as City Hall might be to this other facility. The challenge with that, from a practical standpoint, is how do you make that decision without us, the leaders of the community, making that choice? Your perspective of what Village Hall may be is your choice, is your perspective. My perspective is I have a building sitting at the end of Rio Grande Boulevard that is sitting there that needs to get some funding and needs to get rehabbed. And as I look at the priorities of the village where you have gone to me as a citizen, as a voter, for the last 4 or 5 years has been to buy open space. That this is what this community is about, being rural and having an open space. And what better way to celebrate the open space, the largest acquisition, than the one we have with Village Hall overseeing a facility like that. And looking at this facility and thinking to myself, this is more of a multi-purpose complex. You've got tennis courts, you've got a park, you've got a market. This could easily become a community center, a senior center, a library, where you have a lot more synergy and more communities use, right? But we've not had that conversation, admittedly. And certainly that is different in this process. And so maybe the perspective might be is to clean up the language so that we're just asking for funding for the projects, money for Anderson Fields House or the Anderson House for development, funding for this project, et cetera, and leave the decision of where the buildings go to a different conversation.
I was just going to suggest that. That way you keep it on the list.
And we keep it on the list,
Right, yeah.
and we move forward.
And, the other thing that I would add is that it does feel like we've outgrown this facility.
Right.
Tonight we can handle the people that came in, but there have been times when we did not have enough space. And we're probably pretty tight on space for the staff. Our conference room is pretty darn small, right? So there are reasons to start talking about, a new village hall.
Right.
And I don't know where that would be. We haven't vetted, probably need to vet this with the public as well.
Sure.
Get their thoughts. But yeah, I like the idea of keeping it on the list.
Okay.
So let's make it more generic if we can.
So John, we would change the resolution, or at least the list, to have just facilities funding for the Anderson property and for Village Hall.
Okay.
As that way, it keeps the conversation on the table, the potential moves, but it also helps us direct our legislators to seek funding for those projects. And of course, we still have the next 3 or 4 months to refine them as it relates to presenting them during our legislative session.
That was one example.
Sure. Let's go to your next example. Let's go to your next example.
That's all I have anyway.
Okay.
I like that idea, but I think making the wordsmithing correct tonight would be very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
John, you said, if I could, Mayor, you said at the first part of July. What is the actual date?
I believe it's the 10th.
10th of
Is
July.
that Wednesday? It's Thursday, I believe. Okay.
So there may be time to.
Sure, there's.
Because I think there could be some wordsmithing that maybe some of us might have some opinions about, and it might go, we may be able to get to a point where we kind of come to the conclusion that you just came to about the open space and this site.
Are we looking
I could
for
see other architectural ways to make this building accommodate more people in a village hall. You know, and those garages, for instance, that we have that used to be the fire department could much more easily than the Anderson building be accommodated, could accommodate a larger space than what we have right here, as one example. So, but anyway, that's my thinking.
What are you thinking, Council Trustee?
I think I would go along with Gil's recommendation in terms of listing these in a way that's more generic. Gives us further choice down the road, and it gives us a way to be thinking about really what the, you know, which of these really is going to provide the most benefit to the village. Okay, and I think you're right. I mean, tonight making those decisions is going to be very difficult, you know. But I think we need to be able to put it together so that we do meet the requirements of the state.
May I ask the clerk if we had to set up a special meeting, another meeting for the approval of this, what dates would work?
So, Mayor Trustees, we need 72-hour notice of the posted agenda. So today is the 24th. We have limited time this week, and then next week we're running into a holiday, so we could do something as soon as the 2nd, the 1st or the 2nd. That would be of July. The 8th, I believe, is a P&Z meeting, or we could do something during the day. That would work if that worked for everyone, that we could do it in the day. So that could be
Why don't we,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, and then we could do 7, 8, or 9, but we need to allow Administrator Avila enough time to get those inputted because it's a very cumbersome process.
let me ask the trustees, does it make sense to do something before the holiday, or would you prefer to wait till after the holiday? It makes no difference to me.
It's a pretty short time till before the holiday. I mean, it's almost
availability.
After the holiday doesn't work for me. I'm out of town.
You're out of town. Are you out of town through the 10th?
Starting the 9th and through the 13th. So, yeah.
Could we do the 7th?
Mm-hmm.
The 7th?
I won't be available on that date, but
Well, we can do that on the 7th, right?
you could do the 7th. If you wanted to do something during the day on the 8th, we could accommodate that.
7th work for you?
Any days can work for me, so I'll just be here. Our village clerk won't be here on the 7th. Middle of the day may not work for folks. But this list, if I may, Board of Trustees, this list is the attachment to the resolution. So if you wanted to give me any recommendations, suggestions on the list that I could try to cobble together, I know about going generic on the buildings. I get it. I think we can just remove some names and addresses, and it's fairly generic enough. But if there's anything else that needs some sort of wordsmithing or otherwise, or at least that may be your preference, submit it, and then I can try to include it and just bring a compiled list, fairly quick turnaround. So I just need to have it to be able to do it.
Well, and my suggestion was going to be, let's schedule a meeting for the 7th in the evening at 6. But in order for John, as Danielle just said, our clerk said, in order for John to put this, we need for all of us to submit whatever changes and whatever other ideas you have to John before the holiday, so that he has some time to to incorporate it into the list. Would that work with everybody?
It does for me. Trustee Kiefer, is that too close to your holiday?
I can make it work.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well then, why don't we then, instead of having, do we have a motion for approval of this, Madam Chair?
Yes, we had a motion and a second, so we'll need to amend that.
So we can withdraw the motion.
Can I make the motion?
Yes, sir.
So, motion to withdraw my previous motion? How do I do that?
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, why don't we have, trustees, maybe just a simple motion to defer to a special meeting of the 7th of July. Does that work, Mr. Chappell?
Mayor and trustees, I think the motion can be withdrawn with the consent of the person who seconded it. And you have to go no further on that one, and then you have to do a motion for a deferral. And the
Trustee-
deferral must refer to a specific date, and so you have that.
Trustee right now is made the second on the original motion.
You concur with the withdrawal?
I concur with withdrawal.
Okay. So now we're, again, up for a motion for deferral to the July 7th meeting. So trustees, one of you all need to make that motion.
I'll make a motion to defer resolution 2025-0605 to July 7th special meeting.
And I'll second it.
You have a second? Any other questions? Any other conversation?
I just wanted to say thank you for considering it.
Okay. All of those in favor of the, do we have to have a voice vote on this?
Well, it's not a resolution anymore, and we're moving it to deferral.
Deferral. So a yes, a yay, nay thing would work? Yes. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed?
Yes.
No? All right, we're done with this particular item. We'll move on to the financial officer and administrator's report. So, Tammy.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Before you is the cash report for May 31st, 2025. We have an ending cash balance of $14,404,640.71. This is an increase of $401,344.04 for the month. And we have a year-to-date excess of revenue over expenditure of $1,976,293. And during the month of May, we had several significant items that are listed below. And as you know, we're rounding out our fiscal year close this month, so that will continue into next month, seeing some large and significant items that we're closing out for the fiscal year.
Any questions of finance officer? All right, we'll move on to Mr. Avila.
Mayor, Board of Trustees, I just have my report submitted there. Want to let you all know about the National Night Out that's August 5th, and getting confirmation about what kind of event we'll have. And we had one last year at the Old Miller's Feeder Paseo Del Norte Open Space. And this, again, National Night Out is for public safety, but we combined it with public volunteerism, and we painted the Unser stalls at that point. Very similar project, I anticipate, with volunteers invited and the community thereabouts for that particular night on that date. We also have on July 10th at the Raymond G. Sanchez, I believe it's July 10th, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, where we'll have a public input or public information on the levy study. It's not really much input, it's the engineers producing what data and findings they have at that point. And that's scheduled, again, I believe it's July 10th. Is that correct?
Yes, July 10th at the Raymond G. Center, and I was trying to pull up the time. and that looks like it is scheduled for 5:30, but we're in the process of getting that information pieced together, so we should get that out to you shortly.
We will be bringing the award agreement for the municipal arterial project grant funding for Rio Grande to the Board of Trustees. And this in the new fiscal year will be a project that will start as soon as we can with that agreement in place. And now that we've gone through our engineering RFP and being able to assign folks to that, we can move ahead. But also, we also have the announcement that we'll be in line for Water Trust Board funding. This is a little over $600,000 to underground or line and somehow make sure that we're taking care of irrigation at the Agri-Nature Center. And that won't happen until final funding will be at the end of the year, but we do need to prepare for that. So those are a couple of events that have happened recently.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Avila? No? All right, move over to trustee reports. Trustee Benavides.
Just two quick things. During public comments, Speaker Mr. Trujillo talked about the growers market and the art market on Saturdays. And I think he was saying that the attendance is not what it used to be. And it's something that I've noticed, and it's very curious. It's like, what's happening? And I thought, well, maybe because it's the growers market, things aren't being harvested yet, and maybe it'll take care of itself. But it's something we should pay attention to, because it's usually a booming crowd over there. So that was an important observation. One final thing. 4th Street is our largest project, and I think our village administrator does a fine job of summarizing all the reports, and certainly it's a lot quicker having him do that. But at some point, we probably should have Maria Rinaldi do a presentation about 4th Street again, since it's our biggest project. Not an urgent thing.
Sure.
But it's at some point. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Kiefer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have a couple things. One, and I think this kind of goes with the ICIP discussion that we're having, is it would be really nice in the department updates to kind of have an Excel of where we are with the projects, what we've spent, what we were given, just real, 4 or 5 columns, doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I learned as a private citizen before running for election, but also going to the municipal conference, is Munoz wants us to spend our money and spend our money right on time. And I know we just did an extension in one of the resolutions tonight, and that's really frowned upon. But it's hard for me to kind of move the ball along and realize where we are and what projects and where we are with different approvals without it kind of being in my face. So that would just be something that's kind of helpful, if you don't mind having something like that done. The other thing is, these national night outs that we're talking about in public meetings, do we use go.gov to kind of announce these on text messages?
We use an application called TextMyGov.
Or that's what I meant, sorry, TextMyGov, where you announce like kind of the street work and stuff. So we'll be using those for like National Night Out and for, different, like maybe the ICIP special meeting, because community members, I think, really kind of, especially the things that are more sensitive, it's another way to get it out when we miss the publications. So just an idea. Sorry, thank you. The other thing is, have we heard, because again, before I was elected, and palindrome was a big hot topic, we were told by the previous administration and administrator that there was just tons of tenants ready to just move in and sign leases, and they were ready to go because that was going to be our, they knew that that was our bread and butter. And I see a bunch of tenants, but I don't see any commercial people there yet. So I guess my question is, where are we with that? How are we going to start generating these revenues? I guess I also have a question. I don't mean to put Trustee Benavides or Trustee Radnovich on the spot, but did you guys ever see a list? I mean, because that's what
Well, except
we
for
were
the,
told.
since it's a discussion, except for the grocery store. That was the only thing I ever saw.
But nothing in the micro retail.
I heard two things from Palindrome. One was the grocery store. Another was in the hotel, a tap room or brewery, and a pizza joint that, and I like this idea, that was supposed to use the whatever they call it, that brewers like the leftover sludge from beer, to put it into pellets and use that to make the pizza in the pizzeria. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And the other thing that was in that was a florist or some kind of a stand to sell the farmed, because there's a farm in the second phase, small farm, to sell that. And there's a building in that plan that shows that. And then the last thing I heard was no cannabis at all. They weren't thinking that at all. So that's all I heard, but they were all just, except for the grocery store, which was really like kind of a thing, which it appears is maybe not going to happen. I didn't hear anything at all. And I don't know about you, Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, so the space, so the spaces that you're talking about below the apartments are referred to as micro retail, right? And it's modeled after what you might see at El Vado, right?
Right.
And I don't know how those places got filled. But have you been to El Vado?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, they were filled there, so I don't know if what the plan was and how to invite people to start moving in, or if it's even ready for that. I actually don't know.
I bet it is.
I heard that, 2 of the 3 apartment buildings are filled.
Well, if you look at Long's second development up in Uptown, Albuquerque, most of the tenants in that are from Long's sawmill project down by Old Town. So I'm guessing that Mr. Reneker is probably talking to some of those folks down at El Vado. I don't know.
So for the second phase, yeah, a grocery store was high on the list.
Yep.
And a hotel, a small hotel, not a big one. And that was about all that I heard that was talked about. And I think a grocery store, different from what you'd see at like Smith's, right?
Right.
Or Albertsons, is something the public really wants. I mean, Trader Joe's would be like wonderful, but I think we really need to push for that.
Well, my concern, and the reason I'm bringing it up is the micro retail. You drive down 4th Street, every micro retail that's below apartments are empty. And, this is supposed to be our revenue generator now that the construction is done. So, I'm just getting a little concerned, but I do remember the comments when the public was like, who or what, we have these lists and we have people clamoring to get in, and and so I'm just kind of curious as to
Interestingly,
where those lists.
on that note, I've talked to Jay Remdy about the development that our office is in repeatedly about that. And he has a hard time keeping it full and keeping it viable. And he's actually come to the conclusion that for his next project, he's not going to include retail on the bottom floor because he just can't keep it. There's not enough population where his apartments are to keep it going. So it has to be a really specialized or special kind of a place. And then it has to be retail that's really going to make it in a place like that. And that's probably the hard part.
Sure.
And, sorry, one last thing is I just wanted to say congratulations to Danielle for her nomination of Clerk of the Year. It just proves, second year, last year, Tammy and Danielle won an award for the village. And so, to be nominated is awesome. So congratulations. Thank you.
Very good.
And I just have one comment.
Go ahead.
And that's it. You should have won.
Trustee Reno?
Yeah, I want to do, actually a couple of things. One is that that we were told by Chad Redeker that they were going to build a wall on the back of the property, on the south side of the property. And it was going to be attached to the first phases of the development. It was not going to wait until the second phases. And I've talked with a couple of people along Vineyard, and Vineyard they keep on asking me, well, when's it going to be built? And so certainly I think that it's something that we need to remind him about, because that was a commitment that we got from him early on. The other thing I wanted to acknowledge, or to recognize actually, is the work that's being done by the P&Z commissioners. I had reviewed the recording of the special meeting that occurred just last week regarding the Chavez Guadalupe development. And the purpose of that meeting was to approve not the site plan, but help me out, George, the
plat.
The plat, exactly. Was to approve the plat, but in doing so, the members of the commission, I think, were very thoughtful in terms of the questions that they were asking. They obviously read the material. Some of the questions and some of the concerns were outside of the discussion about the plat. But I think that it really helped to inform me about the kinds of concerns and issues that they were thinking about. And then we also had input from the community as well. And I don't think we give them enough recognition. They're serving, obviously, without any compensation. They're volunteers. I mean, you folks have served on the commission. You know that the amount of time that it takes. But I just wanted to give them the kudos that they deserve.
Very good. All right, any other question? All right, well, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. We need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It is 9:24.
I thought it was going to be a fast meeting.
I almost waited to say no.
Indeed. All right, well, we'll get to see each other again here very shortly.